Trevor Sikkema talking about the upcoming NFL draft, which will have a place on the show, a pretty prominent place on the show from now until the actual draft itself, which is next Thursday, coming up rapidly.
And we will have all 3 days of the draft here on the station.
Of course.
Via ESPN Radio, of course, with the ESPN Radio affiliation. So that's another one of the reasons why we're going to be very draft heavy next week, and a little draft today with Trevor Sikkema. We appreciate him.
It's interesting because it's going to be a light draft year for the in-state talent. It seems like, BYU didn't matriculate a lot of guys, and University of Utah didn't either. The best players for Utah, I think, you're not going to get a first-round draft pick, but we'll stay hot on the coverage. We've got practice sound for you, as I said today. Yesterday was the media observation period. Shout out to Junk. Shout out to Keeler McJunkin, who is
our guy Junk.
Yeah, new in the role of kind of the that SID media relations role at the University of Utah, and he's doing a stellar job so far. And a little bird up there at practice told me that part of the reason why we have better access than most places, that Utah football is more willing to allow observation and things like that is at least in some part due to Keeler McJunkin's campaigning with the coaching staff. So that's great. Love to hear that. Shout out to Junk. In any case,
we love that.
Got a chance to watch some of practice, 20 minutes or so of practice. Actually, yes, this is crazy. I feel so blessed, and we feel so fortunate that there are, as I've discussed all over the place, there are schools that do not want to show you anything. They do not want to show you what their starting quarterback looks like. They don't want to give you any hint of their formations or their rotations or anything like that. And Kyle Whittingham and the Utah staff have decided to just let it be what it is. And let them watch 20 minutes or so. And we're not busting out any trick plays probably in that observation period. But I got to see, the one offensive line. I got to see Devin Dampier on a couple of drives. Got to see the running backs and the linebackers hitting for real in a full padded practice. So full padded, by the way, is a generous term right now because the fashion trend in college football right now, there for a long time was a rule, and I don't know if it's enforced at all. I don't think it is, where you had to have knee pads in, you had to have thigh pads in, and you had to make sure that your pants actually went down to the knee so that the knee pad could cover what it was supposed to.
Yeah, I remember when I was in my very all too short-lived high school basketball career that I briefly talked about on the show here. It was spectacular, but very short-lived.
Yes, yes.
In the freshman and sophomore levels, they had rules about that. UHSAA had rules about you couldn't have your jersey untucked.
Yeah, I mean,
so there's always been at all levels. There's always been some, some might say nitpicky jersey uniform rules.
And of course it doesn't apply to practice necessarily, but right now the fashion trend is for all these guys to be wearing effectively like short shorts. They're football pants, but they are undersized and they are butchered and cut in such a way that it's like you're wearing shoulder pads, helmet, and biker shorts.
And
which, cool, man. If that's what the hot thing is now, and you got your Under Armour girdle underneath it that's got the honeycomb pads, so you don't actually have to put anything in the – fine. If that's how it is, cool. But it's funny because the full padded practices are shells now.
Yeah.
Like you're not protecting your legs at all. Which, of
they
course –
are wearing – a lot of them are – I don't think it's everybody, but a lot of them are wearing the Guardian
I think
caps.
everyone except for the quarterbacks.
Maybe it's just the quarterbacks. That's why I said not everybody. Maybe it's just the quarterbacks because they're not supposed to be getting hit.
No one's hitting the quarterbacks. But
they are. You do see all the Guardian caps at the at the media viewed scrimmage that they did a couple weeks ago, and we got to sit in the press box at Rice Eccles Stadium to watch them scrimmage. One of the trends that was driving a shout out to Joe Coles, Deseret News, driving him nuts was the not necessarily crop top, but the T-shirt underneath the jersey being pulled up, covering the numbers.
Oh yeah.
And he anyway. Joe was hilarious, complaining about how we're so far away. I need binoculars to see them anyway, and I can't even see their numbers because they got their shirt pulled up.
Joe brought his own.
We love Joe.
Joe brought his own folding chair to.
Yes.
You know how you have to wait out front. He brought his own folding chair to wait.
He's a legend on the beat already. I think this is third year, maybe fourth year on the beat. He's doing
fantastic.
Awesome. And shout out to his dad, Matt, too, longtime writer. Now does some freelance work with the AP. Good guy, too. So shout out to all the Coles family.
Anyway, it was great to have the access and to watch and get the glimpses that we got. And look, this Utah football team has some talent. This Utah football team, weirdly enough, rounding out spring ball, is not complete right now. You'll hear it in the sound that we got from Kyle Whittingham. They are probably going to add some players in the transfer portal. And that spring window opens today. Now, I was campaigning, even at practice yesterday, I was campaigning maybe for Jaden Ott to get a phone call or two from the University of Utah. And whether he did or not ends up being a moot point because Jaden Ott has already agreed to go from Cal to Oklahoma.
Is he? Should his nickname be Zero because of Ott? No?
Don't do that.
Should we not do that?
Jaden Ott is a great player. And by the way, Oklahoma now has picked over the corpse of former Pac-12 teams.
They have.
They got John Mateer from Washington State. They got Jaden Ott from Cal. So the two best players on those rosters. And they got a Stanford offensive lineman who I don't think is in the same conversation as those guys, but started 11 games for the Cardinal last year. So
that's not nothing.
So this is, Oklahoma is looking out west and being like, okay, let's see what we can do.
The Pac-12 wasn't any good at football though. That's why they closed up shop, right?
I think that Oklahoma's probably doing it as to prove out of spite to prove a point because they lost their coach and the eventual Heisman Trophy winning quarterback to a Pac-12 school.
Yeah.
So it's we're going to take whatever good stuff you've got now.
Yeah, except ironically not from USC.
Yeah, not from USC. Because, look, USC can still outbid you probably for the services here. And the reason I say outbid you.
Certainly outbid BYU.
We're watching a really kind of tragic thing unfold in college football right now. And mark my words, we are never, as sports fans, as college sports fans, going to forget the name Nico Iamaleava. Not just because it's a unique name that some people have a hard time pronouncing, but it'll get shortened. And we'll be like, remember what happened with Nico? Nico is going to be like Kobe, Madonna, Elvis. It's just going to be like a one-word name, Prince.
You're gonna have to clarify whether you're talking about in college football or the NBA because two guys named Nico did something insane in this
Nico,
at the early part of 2025.
You're right. Maybe we'll have to keep saying Iamaleava because Nico Harrison. By the way, I don't mean to jump all over the place, but when he finally talked to the media again and he did not allow electronic recording devices.
Yeah. And then
so you had to
just
read a transcript and I have no regrets. Remember that? You ever seen that comedy show, We're the Millers?
I never saw it.
Okay.
No.
There's a trope, a little bit in that where the oldest daughter or fake daughter, whatever, you have to know the movie, is going on a date with a guy. And he's just a, trailer trash type dude. And he has a tattoo across his collarbones that says "No regrets."
Oh, okay. I've seen the meme. I've seen the GIF.
You've seen
yes.
the
I didn't
GIF
realize that was from what movie it was from.
I think it's from that movie.
I've absolutely seen that. Yeah.
And it's misspelled. No regrets.
No regrets.
Those are the kind of no regrets that Nico Harrison has right now. Okay.
No regrets.
Nico Harrison and that kid are the same right now. But back to Nico Iamaleava.
Yeah.
I actually hate watching this. I was like, I've gone on the full roller coaster. I've run the full gamut of emotions here because when this saga started, like, I guess a week ago, 6 days ago, I was just like, oh my gosh, this kid is spoiled. This kid is ridiculous. This kid is completely up in the night asking for double salary in college football. Roughly $2 million a year in NIL for multiple years, by the way. It's not like he's going to leave the University of Tennessee with $2 million. He's going to leave the University of Tennessee with $4+ million. Raise your hand if you're sitting in an office listening to me right now, driving around in a car right now, doing anything as you go about your day. Maybe you're mowing the lawn. Raise your hand if you have $4 million. We don't have it. Unless you're a professional athlete.
Sorry, that was for the YouTube channel. The camera wasn't on me.
James apparently has lots of money. Make sure you're watching on YouTube when James reveals exactly how he got all of this money. There's no way he did it legally.
Well, back when I made my first $1 million.
But and Nico, I almost said Nico Harrison. Nico Yamaliava gets to say, back when I signed my first $1 million deal when I was a 17-year-old high school junior, and he's going to be doing a speaking circuit someday. He's going to be at AlphaCon or something, and he's going to be like,
LambdaCon.
Hey, guys, let me tell you a story about when I was in college.
It started when I was a junior in high school.
I had the world at my feet. I was on my way to another season of SEC football as the presumptive starter for a place that sells out every single game. And all you have to do is win a few, and people are chanting your name. 100,000 strong at Neyland Stadium are chanting your name. And I got greedy, and my camp got greedy, agent, parents.
He won't blame it on himself. He'll certainly
is.
Throw his camp under the bus.
We got greedy, and we said, you know what? What I have right now as statistically the 7th best quarterback in the SEC is not enough. I need more. I want more. So I marched into the office, and I'm painting a picture for you. I don't know if this is exactly how it went down.
I'm marching.
I marched into the office of my head coach, and I slapped a new list of demands down on the desk. And I said, $2 million isn't enough. I want $4 million.
Or I walk.
Or I'm out of here. Well, okay, Nico, relax. Let's just show up to meetings, show up to practice. And you know what I did? I held out because I was dead certain on the advice of my camp and my own personal desires that my phone would be ringing off the hook when I said I was ready to leave Tennessee if they wouldn't pay me $4 million. And what we have watched unfold here is this young man who was in a really great situation where a school had actually committed to him long-term, and he had committed to that school long-term, and maybe was on his way to being an example of how NIL could actually work to eliminate this insane Wild West of free agency. You really believe in a kid enough, and you bite down on it, and you spend the $8 million up front, and you commit to that, and it didn't work out the freshman year, didn't work out the sophomore year, but maybe the development continues, and by the time he's a junior or a senior, now he delivers that SEC championship to you, which, by the way, if it had played out like that, and I'm skeptical that it would, if it had played out like that, $8 million would have been considered an insane bargain for Tennessee to have only had to pay that and gotten an SEC championship out of it. I promise you, an SEC championship for Tennessee is worth way more than $8 million.
Absolutely, and they probably would have been playoff teams each of those 3 years, even if they hadn't have been an SEC champion by that time, because they made the playoff last year in the expanded playoff. So you got to think that he's going to improve enough to continue to be in the playoff too. So that's the other angle of it, is whether they win SEC championships or not, they're in the playoff every December, January. That relevancy is probably, that $8 million is well worth the relevancy of being in the playoff every year, right?
But now what you have, like Pete Thamel's reporting on this, all the college football insiders, we're watching somebody who made the wrong bet. I always applaud people who bet on themselves, but it's easy to turn it into a punchline when you make the wrong bet.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there was a complete lack of self-awareness here for Nico and his camp and anyone who advised him to do this. That, look, there are guys out there in college football right now that probably could walk into their head coach's office or their NIL collective office. You probably could walk in and say, hey, I need $4 million if you want me to play here. I honestly don't know who that is, but there's probably a couple of guys that can do it in college football. And I say a couple because it's not a lot. Like Arch Manning could probably do that at Texas. They can't afford the optics of letting Arch Manning walk.
Yeah.
And I think he's already making about that anyway. But let's say that he's making what Nico's making. Arch Manning is probably in a position where he could walk in. Like Drew Aller might be able to say that at Penn State and say, look, all of your hopes and dreams are attached to me. I want $4 million. And they'd be like, they'd have to take a hard look at it.
Yeah.
Right?
If Cam Ward was at Miami one more year, that feels like a definite situation where he might have been able to say something like that.
John Mateer might be able to do it at Oklahoma.
Yeah. Oklahoma's had what, 2 or 3 down years since. Has it been longer than that? Has it only been 3 years since Lincoln Riley left? Right. Anyway, Oklahoma doesn't like down years. They don't have down years, at least historically. They hadn't before Lincoln Riley left. So, yeah, they probably would be desperate enough to pony up for John Mateer.
But even that, I don't think is like a slam dunk. Obviously, you can get it. And Mateer's probably not the best example here because he hasn't had that production at Oklahoma the way that that other guys have had production.
And obviously, they did pony up to get him there anyway. Just
Cade
now,
Klubnik might be able to walk in.
Yeah,
but Dabo would not suffer such foolishness. In any case,
he would, and Cade would probably be convinced by Dabo and all his wisdom that actually, you know what, staying at the money you are now is actually better for you. So there you go.
You look at the situation. I mean, I'm sitting down here. I'm 18 minutes into the show, and Pat McAfee's on the ESPN channel, the television in front of us, and the last 15 minutes have been Nico. The only thing justifying Nico being a headline right now in college football is unfortunately the idiotic decision made by himself, his camp, etc. And the reports are out there now that the $2 million price tag that he was carrying at Tennessee, and they were fully willing, according to all reports, they were fully willing to continue on that path. He's not even going to be able to meet that now wherever he lands. North Carolina said, no, we're out. We don't want that anymore.
Yeah, you talk about Dabo being a guy that's not going to suffer that kind of stuff. Belichick doesn't strike me as a guy that wants to suffer that either.
I always applaud this, and you probably get sick of hearing me say this. I think people probably get bothered hearing me beat this point to death. In college sports, like in college in general, I think that is the time, that is the bridge between high school, where you're starting to figure it out, and real life. The 4 or 5, or I guess if you're a COVID kid, the 6 years of your college experience, that's the time when you figure out how to be a grown-up, when you figure out how to be an adult. So these lessons, when folks want to get more for their money, or they want to get more bang for their buck, so to speak, and transfer to somewhere else and improve their NIL funds and things like that, I say, you know what? Even though I do it begrudgingly, in the real world, you get to do that with your jobs. So fine, climb the corporate ladder. It's effectively the same thing. And this is one of those. This is one of those harsh lessons that sometimes you have to learn in life. Like, I should have gone with that offer, or I should not have gone with that offer. These are Most of us probably have something in our life, whether you never tried dating the person you should have tried dating, you never took the job you should have taken, you never quit the job you should have quit a long time ago, whatever it is. These are like real life lessons. And unfortunately, Nico Iamaleava, the now former Tennessee quarterback, is having to learn this lesson in the most brutal fashion, where people are just like Kirk Herbstreit is on television right now, and Kirk is always really kind about college athletes, but he's sitting here talking for the next 5 minutes about why Nico should not have done this. Pat McAfee and A.J. Hawk and company just spent the last 20 minutes talking about exactly this. And there are individuals right now, we saw the numbers. I'll pull it up again. This is like a super high-profile version of the same problem that is currently plaguing college athletics, that a lot of people just don't know or don't have someone in their life or some combination of those two things, don't realize how good you have it. The meal plan, the free education, the free transportation, and in this case, the $2 million, the $49,000 a month or whatever that translates to being. You don't realize how good you have it. This is the tweet I was looking for. Transfer portal players in Division I basketball right now. Individuals, most of whom were on scholarship at an institution playing college basketball, getting an education, being the big man on campus, enjoying basketball life. 4,300 of those individuals are in the transfer portal right now. 4,300. That means more than 4,000 people did a micro version of what Nico Iamaleava is doing, unfortunately for him, on the biggest stage. They said, you know what? This isn't for me. And again, I say all of these things as a transfer student in my own college days, back before it was cool, right? I am not the guy. I'm not the guy who's like loyalty to the program no matter what happens. Like, yes, that's the ideal thing, but if the writing is on the wall and you're not going to play, fine. In this case, like of those 4,000 plus, there's probably maybe even a full half of that number that are justified in leaving, that weren't going to get playing time, that it wasn't going to be, quote unquote, worth it to them to stick it out and stay. Maybe that number is too generous. But even if half is, quote unquote, justified, that means that you're looking at 2,150 plus players that were just like, yeah, I have it good here, but it's not good enough. We have, as a sports public, as a generation of parents, as a generation of leaders, certainly the NCAA and college sports leadership, we have failed these individuals in such a way that they are now handicapping themselves long term. Nico's going to be fine. I assume he hasn't spent all $4 million of his dollars yet. He's going to land somewhere, and he's going to make probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million. 500,000 to $1 million, which is still unbelievable. But how many years from now is Nico going to be sitting there around a campfire, around a dinner table, at a desk, hopefully for him in a meeting room in the NFL or in the UFL, or at least saying, oh, man, I can't believe I walked away from Tennessee thinking that everyone was going to be knocking down my door to pay me $4 million.
By the way, it's like, I know that money seemingly matters more than the tradition of a school. Like, that used to seemingly be the thing that mattered more than anything. We all know that money played a part traditionally, too, in college football pre-NIL. But it seemed to be that the tradition of the school and the football program mattered more than even that did. Tennessee is a historically great football program. Like you mentioned earlier, they sell out Neyland Stadium all the time, even when they're not good.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great place to play. That's a great place to be the starting quarterback for. So it's a little bit shocking to me that not even that was enough for him to go, you know what, even though I feel like I might be worth more, even though I'd like to be paid more than I'm doing this, and I'm tempted to hold out and try to use my leverage to make it happen, I like being at Tennessee more. I like playing big-time college football more in a big-time college football environment than I want to risk leaving that environment for a little bit more money. Or double the money. Not even a little bit more, but double the money.
What bothers me most about this whole situation is that there's supposed to be, around somebody like this, you got to assume that Nico has a lot of real friends, and then a lot of people who at least pretend to be his friend, and they've got however many player personnel individuals, coaches, etc. on the Tennessee staff, right? He's got professors at school. He's got tutors that work in whatever the academic center is called at Tennessee. He's got, the Chef Pete of Tennessee, the guy who's providing the nutrition. And you're telling me that between friends, family, coaches, whatever else, there's not one individual that can sit him down and be like, hey, man, before you make this decision, let's take a look at what the market is really like. How many guys do we think in college football right now are making $4 million a year? The answer to that is probably less than 10. You're telling me there's not one individual in Nico's life who can sit him down and be like, let's go over your numbers to make sure that your market is going to be as hot as those guys, those 5 or 10 guys that are making the money you're asking for. And then as soon as you pull up the numbers, you're just like, oh, well, it turns out, Nico, that you're a good quarterback asking for elite quarterback money. And those two things don't match up. You don't have a high school best friend that can be like, hey, dude, $2 million? Don't walk away from that. There's no devil's advocate in your life that can be like, cousin, brother, best friend, son, you have it really good right now. Let's not do this. If you want more money from Tennessee, go behind the scenes, tell your agent to shut up, go talk to the NIL collective, go talk to the coach, and just be like, hey, I think my play has justified a little bump. And they're going to tell you no, and then you can make a decision from there. There's nobody in this kid's life that was able to say to him, this is not a realistic expectation. That is bad. We have failed if that's the case. Don't surround yourself with yes men, hangers-on, etc. When I say we have failed, I really mean they have failed. I haven't failed, Nico, I don't think. You haven't either, listening to this show. But I pray that I know I do, I pray that all of you out there have someone in your life that when you're about to make a rash and insane decision that could be detrimental to the overall quality of your future, that individual or those individuals have enough influence on you to say, let's not do this right now. Let's take a deep breath and think about it at least. And maybe, just maybe, you don't want to be dragged for the next week on national television and end up at a lesser school, a lesser program for half the money. That's what's going to happen to this kid. Surround yourself with people who can tell you when you're wrong. As much as we all hate hearing it, it's important. All right, got to take a quick one here. Spent way too much time on that. Show today and every day is brought to you by friends at Les Schwab Tires. Tires, wheels, accessories. They got everything you need for your car, and the pros there are going to get the job done right the first time. Whenever you stop by Les Schwab, tell them OC sent you in. Belle Fraser is going to join us next officially Utah Hockey Club's inaugural season in Salt Lake City is now over. It's done. We'll talk about it with our favorite insider, Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
Great goal by Kels.
Yeah, Keller with a goal, and he's at it again in St. Louis. And the power play remains red hot. And Utah's on the board.
Clayton Keller's power play goal was the only goal for the Utah Hockey Club in a loss to the St. Louis Blues to close out the season. That sound courtesy of Smith Entertainment Group Media. Matt McConnell on the call. 90 points for Clayton Keller. We talked about this on the show yesterday. He reached that 90-point milestone for the first time in his career. We'll talk about Keller. We'll talk about everyone on this team with Belle Fraser, Utah Hockey Club insider, friend of the program, who has just completed her first season as, a Utah Hockey Club insider. Belle, welcome back to the show. How are you? Uh-oh. Belle.
Good. How are you?
Oh, there she is. Hey. Is that how long the delay is going to be, James?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Belle. We're trying something new today on the show where Belle, as a guest, is actually, you can see her right now on the YouTube, on the ESPN 700 Utah YouTube. The delay seems to be a bit of a problem. Maybe we'll have to go back to the drawing board on this, but let's try it out for a second. In any case, Belle, welcome to the show. And tell me how it feels to now have your first Utah Hockey Club season under the belt. Like, this is, you were hired straight out of school, basically. Like, this was like a big life change for you. Does it feel like it was the right move now that you get to look back?
100%. It's really crazy that it's over. I mean, I think you're so in it during the season. There's adrenaline. You just have to keep going to games and practices that you kind of don't come up for breath. But definitely waking up this morning, it felt weird that I wasn't getting on another flight to cover another game or go to practice. I'm actually still in St. Louis and will be making my way back to Utah tonight, and tomorrow at Delta Center will be the team's exit day interviews. So we'll talk to all the players for one last time before they go off for the summer, just to kind of get their overall views and reflection now that the season is over. But yeah, it's very emotional, I guess, looking back on the season. I think for fans, media, players, coaches alike, just there's definitely disappointment with how last night went, losing 6-1 on the road, and obviously not making playoffs, even though that wasn't an expectation. But I think everyone's just really grateful and excited for how Utah and the team and the NHL was receptive in the state and what's to come. Ian Cole talked about it last night, as did Andre Torini, and they said, we have to get better, we will get better, and we'll take the summer to do that. So exciting things to come, and I think everyone's ready for one really long nap this week.
Okay, we're going to pivot to the phone because that's like a 3-second delay. So, Belle, we're going to hang up on the YouTube, and we're going to call you back. Just thank you for sticking with us through this as we figure out some of the technology.
Okay,
here.
sounds good.
Okay, good. We're not going to live with a 3-second delay. In any case, we're going to reconnect with Belle here in just a second. But there was a lot of, I think, positivity, maybe is an overused word. There was the right approach, a correct approach and perspective on that, the microcosm that last night was for the entire season. This is a team that obviously needs to get better, needs to continue to grow, and they made a push, man. They 89 points as a team. Keller had 90 points, 89 points for the team. That's the last 12 years in Arizona. What is now the Utah Hockey Club, what was the Arizona. This is like the best season they've had as a franchise in a very, very long time. And it's not just because they're in Salt Lake City. It's because they've been building things the right way. But you're now 4 years into the rebuild, and the expectations are going to change moving forward. I'm with everyone else. I was just enjoying the ride this whole way and got really optimistic that maybe they could make a playoff push. This was always the realistic outcome, as we have Belle Fraser back now after the technological difficulties. But, Belle, let's talk about that. Like, this season kind of went to script, right? I mean, the expectations were tempered from the get-go. Bill Armstrong at the introductory press was just like, yep, this is going to be awesome, but we are rebuilding. Everyone knows we're rebuilding, right? Did they perform on par with expectations, the realistic ones, above expectation, or I guess some people might say below, but I don't think that fits?
I think they performed on par. Like you said, Bill Armstrong wanted everyone to be really excited about this team and support them and expect good things. But he also said we are, even though we're technically a new team, in the 4th year of a rebuild. And those teams are supposed to be fighting for playoff spots, and their goal was to be playing meaningful games at the end of the season. For a while in Arizona, the last 20 games of the year were kind of throwaway. You weren't fighting for anything. You were close to eliminated. And that's hard on the players and fans. You know, you love watching hockey and they love playing and they want to get better. But when you don't have anything on the line, I think it's hard to develop and kind of hard to feel that fire as a team. And Utah was fighting for their lives up until last week, 2 weeks ago. So I think the fact that they were in the mix, and they could have been a difference maker last night if they beat the St. Louis Blues, because the Blues clinched when they beat Utah. But, you know, they've been a name and they've been someone that don't just roll over at the end of the year. So I think that's a really big positive. They have more points this year than they did last year by 10 points. And then you also look at individual success too. You mentioned it, but Clayton Keller has 90 points for the first time in his 9-year NHL career. It's pretty crazy. He's been in the league for that long and is only 26. Nick Schmaltz has a career high 63 points. Logan Cooley 65. Dylan Gunther 60. Mikhail Sergachev has 15 goals, which is a career high for him. Kevin Stenlund with a career high goal. So I think you saw in the second half of the season, once everything got settled, Utah was officially home and they were in routine. These guys had individual success, and it's a team game, but that's really important too.
That 90-point milestone, just help me put it in perspective for our listeners, because it's a Mason-Dixon line of sorts for, like, guys, if you can get there or be above there. I mean, look, Wayne Gretzky had, 17 90-point seasons? But you go down the list, one of the all-time greats, Alex Ovechkin, he's only done it 6 times. I didn't know that until I just looked it up now. It's a big milestone. How meaningful is it for this team and, of course, for Keller to have done it in his inaugural year?
It's really meaningful, and I think it's a product of the players they have surrounding Clayton Keller right now. He finished the season on the first line with Logan Cooley and Dylan Guenther, but he's also played with Schmaltz and Hayton in that top 6, and I think Utah finally has the supplemental talent to make Keller his highest value, and Keller will say, he has a lot more to do. He doesn't feel complete yet in his game. He said he wants to shoot more. 60 of those 90 points were assists this year, so his playmaking ability is obviously there. Hit the 30-goal mark as well, but he's had seasons with close to 40 goals before. His highest is a 37-goal season in 2022-23. So I think the ceiling's higher for him, but it's an important mark to hit. He's been the franchise player for this team when it was Bears and Coyotes, and now when it's the Utah Hockey Club, and he stuck with it through some dark days and become a star player in the league while being on one of the bottom teams in the league for a while. So I think it's always nice, even if the players won't say it, to get rewarded statistically. And again, like I said, I think the biggest thing is that it just shows he has the supporting cast that maybe he hadn't in the past. And Cooley and Guenther and maybe guys they bring in will continue to get better. And I think that will just, tangentially support Keller even more.
So as you mentioned, you're in year 4 or finishing year 4 of a rebuild, and it feels like year 5 with the development we saw this season should be something where you now can have playoff expectations. Am I getting way too ahead of myself for next year?
No, I don't think so. I think what I'm really intrigued to see next season is how those fan expectations and internal expectations rise, because a lot of this season, even if the team went on a 5-game losing streak, people were just happy to have an NHL team, and they weren't getting frustrated with it because they love the team, they love the players, and they're excited to be part of the inaugural year. And I think this team and the community and ownership will always have a special connection. But what happens if they don't turn a corner, And I think it'll be interesting to see how they handle that pressure. They handled the pressure of the first year very well, putting on a great show for Utah. But now it's time, year 5, and we've talked about the summer a lot with free agency, and they have pieces that they're able to trade with picks and prospects and some players they might be able to move on from. So we'll see who they bring in, but it's definitely time. I won't say it's playoffs or bust or anything of that sort, but I think their expectation, and Michael Kessering said it yesterday, that these fans deserve playoffs, and that's their goal moving forward. Ian Cole said it, Sergachev said it. A lot of these guys who came in just expect to make playoffs every year. So I think they're really frustrated that they're not in it this year, even though it wasn't the expectation. And that is the goal next year. And yeah, it'll be very interesting to see if they can turn that corner now that the glitter and sparkle of the first year in Utah is over.
I'm going to steal that phrase. The glitter and sparkle of the first year is exactly what it's been. We've been all just like, blinders on, like, yeah, but we have an NHL team, yay! And you didn't really get mad or get nitpicky about performances. Belle Fraser is my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, Utah Hockey Club insider. What personnel decisions need to be made? Obviously, they locked up some important talent, extended contracts. They have cap space. You've got draft picks. What are in your mind, the important personnel decisions that need to be made before next year?
I think everyone's waiting for that Logan Cooley contract extension for sure, seeing how they handled Dylan Guenther last year. And with the cap going up, I mean, Cooley could really get paid this summer. Jack McBain is a restricted free agent, so the team obviously has control over how that contract negotiation goes, but I imagine they bring him back. And then I think it's time for Bill Armstrong and his group to make hard decisions now. Nick Bukestad, who has been a really big veteran presence on that team, as an unrestricted free agent, as is Michael Carcone, as is Nick DeSimone. Robert Bertuzzo likely just played his last NHL game in St. Louis where he won a Stanley Cup. So those are guys that you're either having conversations with or you're comfortable moving on with. And then also players that underperformed this year. Matias Michelli was a healthy scratch for majority of the second half of the year, and they just couldn't find a spot for him in the lineup based on how he was playing and how well others were playing in his spot. You look at someone like Kyler Yamamoto, who's fighting for a contract too. So do they move on from Michelli? Do they package him with a couple of prospects and get someone to put in their top six or get a middle six forward? So they have pieces that they can make moves and change kind of the dynamic and look of their team. It's just how big of a splash are they willing to make to disrupt what the roster is now. I think Michelli is a guy that they have a lot of faith in and we're really excited about. So do they give him one more year? But these are the decisions that winning teams have to make. No one wins a Stanley Cup, not burning any bridges or tainting relationships with players and management. It's a tough business at the end of the day. And I think how Utah handles this summer will really show what type of team they're going to be and if that's going to land them in the contending pool.
Do you anticipate that Tija Ginla is part of the everyday roster next year?
I don't know every day, and he's in a really unique situation because he underwent hip surgery earlier this year and he missed the rest of his season only at 19. So that's a really big injury to come back from. And I'm actually working on a story about him and how he's coming back from injury to be ready for training camp next year. And Utah's development staff have worked really close with him, and it's hard. They've given him homework. I was talking to Lee Stepniak, who's the director of player development for Utah. He said they give him homework to watch certain players in the league and certain games and come back with what he's noticing and how they can apply it to his game. So they've worked with him to try to develop, even though he can't be on the ice right now. But that's really important time. At the end of the day, reps are everything. You can preach to a player and show video and give him the playbook, but if he's not out there putting it into action, it's a chunk of time where he could have turned into what they need him to be before training camp. But also, he's a natural talent. He wants to work hard. He wants to get back at it. They've said that he's put everything into his rehab from his hip surgery. So we'll see in development camp and training camp where he lands. But I wouldn't be surprised if they feel like he might just need another year, either in the AHL or not in the AHL, not sign him yet, just to get back the time he lost with injury. So it's not as big of a lock as if he had a full season, I believe. But it's definitely someone that I think Utah fans will see in the next year or two.
All right. I think I've probably spared you asking about the name and the branding the last couple of conversations, but not this time, Belle, because I think we should get an announcement. I want an announcement now, but I think we should get an announcement relatively soon. Do you have any insight on the timeline on when we get to find out what the ultimate decision is regarding Mammoth, Utah Hockey Club, Outlaws? We know the candidates.
Yeah, what it sounded like all year is that it'll be revealed sometime around the NHL draft in June. That's going to be the 2025-26 draft. So that's technically the season where Utah is supposed to have a new name. And with previous franchises, they've announced the jersey and name at the NHL draft. So I would look for around mid to end of June for that announcement. Again, that's not confirmed, but it seems like that would be a stage where they would be able to announce that they have a first-round pick. They have a lot of picks, actually, but to have the jersey unveiled, give it to whoever the prospect is. So that's what we're all hypothetically thinking. But, yeah, I imagine it happens sometime around then.
I'm not going to ask you to burn any bridges by revealing it, but do you know already, Belle? Do you, because you're so close to this team?
I do not. We have, I think everyone has seen all the media members, and even a lot of the fans are all over the trademark website looking for logos and things of that matter. Utah Hockey Club and SCG have extended a lot of the name applications they've used apart from the top three just to keep it a mystery. But there is another owner on the website called SCG Hockey, which is obviously them. And the only three logos they have registered is the Outlaw, the Utah Hockey Club /Yeti one, and the Mammoth, the ones that were on the fan survey a couple months ago. So all we know is those are the final three. If one of those gets declined or canceled, we'll know that it's eliminated. But for now, on a public facing, they've done a really good job of hiding what they're working on. And I pinky promise, I do not know.
All right, I'll believe you because you threw in the pinky promise, but we'll hope for the best when the name is revealed, and I think it'll grow on us even if it's not like what we individually voted on. But man, Belle, you've been such an asset to this show, and I'll speak for the hockey fans in the community. It's been great having you here in Salt Lake City. And we definitely want to keep talking hockey with you, during the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. But I just wanted to make sure you know how much we appreciate all your hard work in your first season as a Utah Hockey Club insider.
Thank you so much. I've had such a fun time coming on this year. So thank you for having me. And yeah, there will be a lot more Utah Hockey Club news to break down in the off season. So looking forward to it.
Well, we'll continue to have Belle on with any news that breaks and just to talk hockey. Before I let you go, am I allowed to ask about the Frozen Four? Am I allowed to ask about college hockey? I mean, I don't want to assault any wounds here.
That I had to go to St. Louis 3 days after BU loses the national championship at the exact rink I was at last night. But yes, you can talk about it.
Okay, you're okay. You're feeling all right. It was a great run, but ultimately they came up short.
Yeah, Western Michigan was the better team, but it was definitely a slap in the face landing at 8 a.m. in St. Louis yesterday, and the Frozen Four banners are still all over the airport. But I'll get over it. It's all right. Terriers will be back.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Belle Frazier. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
For those who don't know, Boston University, the Terriers, runners-up in –
oh, no.
Yeah, Western Michigan.
Say it was in St. Louis?
The game was in St. Louis.
Oh, man.
So
she had to go back to the scene of the crime.
There was a scenario.
For her day job. That's awful.
There was a scenario in which she could have been landing in St. Louis and probably had like BU Terriers national champions merchandise thrown at her, and instead those are shipped off to Ghana and Western Michigan as the championship banner.
Maybe that's a trip she can make in the off season. Having to go to a third world country so I can buy BU Terriers national championship.
That's one of the coolest things when you do go to third world countries.
Yeah,
you'll be like, hey, wait a second. The Jazz never won an NBA championship. Where'd you get that shirt?
In 1997 or 98?
That shirt. That's what it would have looked like.
That's why I'm a Jazz fan, because they won back-to-back titles.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
Oh,
now
brutal.
we just made all our listeners feel bad.
Great. We really screwed this up, James.
We're gonna get that latency figured out, by the way, with the audio delay there, and we're gonna have, hopefully in the near future, our guests on video with us. So just so everyone knows, for those that like to watch it on the YouTube stream at ESPN 700 Sports Utah, that's what we're efforting here. Unfortunately, still got to figure out the audio delay between them and Sean in the studio, but we'll get that figured out.
We'll figure it out for you.
Appreciate Belle for being the guinea pig for us on that, too.
ESPN 792.1 FM. The Festival of Tees is powered by the Utah Golf Association. We are giving away free rounds of golf from the best courses in the state. Listen to Down and Dirty. That's with Scott Mitchell, 10 to 11, right here on the Sean O'Connell Show. And, of course, The Drive with Spence Checketts for your chance to win. All right, a very quick hot lunch, and then we keep rolling on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show. We're going to be real quick on this hot lunch, James. It's going to have nothing to do with sports, all right? And then when we come back, we're going to talk about loyalty in college football, not related to the Nico Iamaleava situation. I'm talking about a trend with quarterbacks specifically, and the highest-ranked quarterbacks, highest-rated recruits. Wow, the numbers are pretty wild. Have you paid any attention to this space flight, this Blue Origin space flight that went up, the all-women's crew?
No, I have not.
Okay.
But that's a cool story.
So Jeff Bezos.
Sorry, I haven't been.
Jeff Bezos has his, privatized space venture, much like Elon does.
Right, okay.
And they sent.
I'm about to have my own, by the way.
Of course.
So everyone's going to be in on this. So.
They sent a crew of all women into space, or to the border of space. It counts as being in space because,
like what, the stratosphere or something?
It's you're above the stratosphere line.
Just okay.
It's like the Cayman zone or whatever.
Okay.
And you're weightless. You get to unstrap from your harness, and you get to float around, and then they bring you back down.
Yeah.
So they did this, and it was like it's very much a PR thing. It was Bezos's fiance and like Gayle King, the talk show host, Oprah Winfrey's best friend. Katy Perry went. This is why I'm bringing it up. Okay. The PR stuff, the quotes, it's just the most insufferable thing ever. But James, imagine you're given an opportunity. Okay. As a normal person, or as a relatively normal person, as a non-astronaut, to go into space. And every time you hear about the experiences people have when they do go to space, like astronauts who prepared their whole life for it, they're always overcome with the emotion of looking back at Earth and looking down at the globe. And it's like a borderline spiritual experience, right?
Right.
Imagine you're in this confined little, steel tube. Probably not steel anymore, whatever. Aluminum alloy tube. And it's you and like 4 other people, 6 other people. You're staring out the window and you're just pondering how tiny you are in the grand scheme of the universe and how this little blue marble is covered. There's 7+ billion people there and you're all connected and you're all one. You're having this experience, right? And imagine that one of those people starts singing in the confined space and busts out their own rendition of What a Wonderful World.
What's that? You probably don't know this movie, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, but the guy who plays the cop on Dumb and Dumber stars in the movie where he's in a movie where he's an astronaut.
I don't know.
Anyway,
movie.
And I obviously I don't know the actor's name either, but he sings, "I've got the whole world in my hands," and the whole world's singing along with him because he's on a news broadcast. Like, yeah, I'm picturing that.
Now that would be fine because that's a quick little song.
Yeah.
What a Wonderful World is not a quick song. It's like a slow burn developing song.
Yes, and not even.
Trees of green.
And I'm sure they didn't even try to do a Louis Armstrong impression.
Well, no, because it was Katy Perry who sang this.
Oh, okay.
Imagine, James, the hubris. You're sitting there. You're with 6 other people who are experiencing this truly once-in-a-lifetime moment. And you're just like, you know what this moment needs? My voice. Oh, my gosh. I can't imagine.
I mean, there's only a few people in the world that both might have that hubris and also could be correct. And someone who's a superstar singer like Katy Perry fits both of those, maybe. But yeah, that's not the moment to do that. Nope.
And look, it was all arranged. This was all for PR, and she wanted to be the first singer to perform in space. So I guess that's where this comes from.
Yeah.
But gosh, it's just like.
Can you just let me ponder things for a second? Ponder my existence.
Just when you think that the world of the super elite, the rich, the celebrities might at some point come back to touch with reality, then you're reminded, nope, they're in their own world, man. They scripted this whole thing, but going to space would be rad. As cynical as I am about this particular flight, and actually not the flight, but just Katy Perry having to sing in space, that's so obnoxious. And I like Katy Perry. I like her songs. I'm fine with Katy Perry.
Yeah.
But that Like, you don't do that.
That doesn't feel like the time, Katie.
But privatized space travel, to me, wild. Maybe by the time I'm in my 70s, it's affordable. And by the time I'm in my 70s, like, I'm willing to take the risk of blasting off the face of the earth because my kids will be grown by then. But, like, this is a bucket list thing that if you could ever afford it or win a sweepstakes to make it happen, would be very, very, very tempting to go into space.
Absolutely.
Pretty
now,
cool.
Here's the thing about it, though. I think about the Titan, the submarine, with all the rich people who the only people that could afford to take that ride were uber rich people, and it just imploding on itself.
Yeah.
I think about that when I think about, you know what? Maybe the rich people can have it. When I think about this too, like maybe they can have that.
By the way,
experience.
I want to know how much of a prototype situation this was. I know they've flown it before, but like Jeff Bezos put his fiance on there. Was he hoping she would come back?
Nope.
Or was this kind of like oh man, I'm getting some cold feet here.
Oh
you know what you should do, honey? You should blast off into space as part of this crew. That's not fun. That's not a nice joke. Strike that from the record. In any case, that's the Hot Lunch today on the Sean O'Connell Show. We're going to start hour number 2 with a conversation about elite recruits at the position by the numbers. Loyalty in college football, no matter who you blame, whether it's agents or coaches or players or whatever to blame, loyalty just is not what it used to be, as all of you are already aware. But the numbers might shock you. Sean O'Connell Show, Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. I've been remiss, by the way. I didn't tell people what the poll question was today at Real OC Sports. We're 2 days removed now from the Utah Jazz season ending. And you've secured top lottery odds. Worst team, worst record in the league. So I just put a simple question out there. Do you believe that the Utah Jazz are going to get the top pick in the upcoming NBA lottery, NBA draft lottery?
I have a grievance against this question, but okay.
I mean,
You already put it out there.
I'm gauging the optimism of the fan base, James.
Okay.
At Real OC Sports, go vote on it.
Guess that makes it okay.
I can tell by your tone that you're absolutely committed. You're all in. You said your vote is yes.
I did vote yes.
Okay.
I did vote yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Congratulations. Sometimes it's good to be.
And I can tell by your trying not to show people what you think tone that you voted no.
Well, I don't get to vote on my own poll, I don't think.
Oh, that's right. You can't.
But I can't see the results without having to vote on it.
You voted no on your burner account.
Yeah.
Is what I meant to say.
The question is, do you believe the Utah Jazz will win the draft lottery and get the top pick in this year's NBA draft? Yes, the tank is worth it, or no, we aren't that lucky. Right now, 73% say no, we aren't that lucky.
Grievance against all of you.
It's not Friday, James. Don't abuse the airing of grievances. That's by the way, that's going to be my grievance preview. That's going to be my grievance against you on Friday. All right.
Teaser grievance.
Yeah, premature grievance. We don't do that here.
Are you going to be able to join us from Orlando again on Friday?
It's an earlier show on Friday.
Okay.
So we'll see.
I'll do my best. Fun doing having you do airing of grievances from the road.
I needed to get that one off my chest too, because the airports, people have been steaming up the airports lately, and it's not cool, man.
Did you hear? I think you hung up when I said that when I was talking about old people need to be more aware of their surroundings. Because old people tend to do more crop dusting than most people.
Yeah. Because
they just don't care, or they don't realize whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that's what reminded me of when I almost hit an old woman who just did not bother to look and see she wasn't in a crosswalk.
That's that's
like,
not good.
So yeah, I think it applies to the crop dusting too, but we don't have to redo the airing of grievances.
Check on the old people in your life. Make sure that James Peterson is not running them over in non-crosswalks. All right. This is something that I saw this stat being thrown out yesterday. I think people are like on the edge of worshiping Arch Manning in college football. Like, if he plays as well as we think he's going to play, the hype, the conversation, it's going to be nuts. It's going to be like Tiger Woods in golf, where nobody wants to talk about anybody else except for Arch Manning.
And probably only Texas fans are going to love every second of it.
And he's at Texas, which is a blue blood, which is a program that is now back to the status they were once at.
Yeah, Texas officially back after finally. So many other false backs.
Yes. How many other false flag Texas's backs have we endured?
So many.
Literally 24 years of it, and finally they're back.
About as many as we've had of Miami.
Okay, so and look, I'm a fan of the Manning family. I think what they've got going seems to be very impressive. They seem to have a good level head about it as much as you can, a good sense of humor about it.
And I like the way that they've let Arch just handle it on his own, and they haven't tried to pump him up unnecessarily. They've just said, "Hey, this is Arch. We know he's really talented. We're going to let him figure it out and show you how talented he can be." I like that approach.
Even when his uncles go to the games, they hide out. They stay. They're not. They
don't want the attention.
They don't want to take the attention. And by the way, he wasn't a starter yet.
Yeah,
he was a spot player. He was the Texas, the poor man's version of Nate Johnson. I'm going to say that.
Yeah, he was their Swiss Army knife.
But I think Arch Manning is on this level now where people are just champing at the bit. There's just oh, please be as good as we think you're going to be. So we now have a spot to put all of our attention and all of our hype on an individual player. And one of the headlines that comes with that is what's been coming out this week. Like, hey, Arch Manning is more loyal than anyone else. He's got a better level head than anyone else. Arch Manning is the only 5-star quarterback from his recruiting class that is still with the school he signed for initially, which is true. And it's impressive in its own right. It's a good thing. I'm not saying that, that expression of loyalty is something to sneeze at or that we shouldn't give it a lot of credit. I also think it's important to note that Texas is one of the few schools that could afford to pay Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers big-time NIL contracts.
At the same time, by the way.
At the same time, concurrently. And the reports were, by the way, that Arch was getting more.
We don't think about that fact enough that you bring that up.
That Arch was getting more than Quinn Ewers that was reported by multiple outlets. That's insane. Your backup quarterback, because of who he is and the name on it. And he signed a big apparel deal this offseason with that Vuori or however you're supposed to say it. The same one that Livy Dunn had a deal with.
Yeah, right. The loungewear,
it's athleisure wear.
Athleisure wear, yeah.
And good for him. Like, the kid seems like he's dialed in. I got nothing against Arch Manning. I especially enjoy that the camp around Arch Manning does not seem to be like, hey, go out there and tell Texas that you need double the money, right?
Or you need to start right now or you're leaving, even though Quinn Ewers is ahead of you and he's an established veteran college quarterback. They haven't done any of that.
His grandpa and his uncles had enough success at the very highest level doing it the old way that I think they're comfortable with allowing him to do it as close to the old way as you can in modern college football. Also, you have to say Arch Manning doesn't have the same level of pressure to provide for his family that a lot of these other guys do. So
there's certainly privilege there. Plays a role.
Arch Manning doesn't need NIL money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's getting it because he's a Manning, but he doesn't need it.
He doesn't need it the same way. And like it's not like your uncle directly provides for your life, right? It's not like he's a beneficiary of Peyton's fortunes or Eli's fortunes even. But the trickle-down effect of his grandpa and the camps that his dad is involved in and all that kind of stuff, like the Manning family is flush is my point. So it's worth stating that when you're being critical of decisions made by other families and other camps and other players like we have been of Nico, it's important, I think, to state that I acknowledge that. So he's the only 5-star quarterback left in his class. And I was doing my research for the show last night, and I was like, okay, that's an easy, fun fact, but that means like he's one of 5. Like, there's not a lot of 5-star quarterbacks in any given class. So I was like, what about the top quarterbacks, period? You don't have to be a 5-star.
Just by production.
James, if I say in his class, which was the 2023 recruiting class, he was the number 1 quarterback, right? And he's the 1 5-star that's still at his place. If I take the top 25 quarterbacks in that class, how many would you say are still at the same school they committed to?
Yeah, and as you say that, even though it was a couple of years ago, I no idea who these guys might be off the top of my head. So this complete guess. Just so the listeners know, I would say is it like 5?
It's 7. 7 of the top 25 are still with the school that they committed to.
What's the list?
So Arch Manning was the number 1.
Okay.
Nico was number 2.
All right.
And that's why this factoid was brought up, because he was the only other one. So he's a 5-star. Dante Moore, who started out at UCLA, now at Oregon, he was number 3. Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma. Malachi Nelson, committed to USC. Jaden Rashada, committed. And by the way, Malachi Nelson ends the 5-star quarterback list. It's 5 of them.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you get to the 4-star guys.
It's not like there's 35 stars that have just changed teams, to your point. Yeah.
Jaden Rashada initially committed to Arizona State. That saga got a little bit ugly, remember, because he was at Florida saying he wanted more money. He was doing the Nico thing before he played it down.
That's right.
Right? Aiden Childs, former Oregon State quarterback. Austin Mack, I say former, by the way, because none of these guys, except for Arch that I mentioned, are still at the school they committed to.
Who are the other 6 that are still at their school?
Avery Johnson at Kansas State is the only other one that's played.
Wow.
Christopher Vizina is at Clemson, and he committed to Clemson initially. Lincoln Kinesholtz is at Ohio State, and he committed to Ohio State initially. There's a kid named Eli Holstein who was at Alabama, Austin Novosad, Oregon, and Kenny Minchie from Notre Dame, and nobody else. Everybody else is at a different school now.
So the ones
in the top 25.
That's very interesting. The ones that have stayed, there's only 2 that have gotten any playing time, and really one that's really been had significant starting experience.
And yes, because
you can't say that about Arch.
And the guys who have stayed, by the way, are Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, Oregon, Notre Dame. Those are the guys who have stayed besides the guys who got to play and besides Arch. So, like, you're either at a blue blood and have accepted that it's going to take you some time to build up to that, or even if you're at, like, a new blood, as I like to call them, or at these borderline schools. Oregon's a new blood. They're a money school, though.
Yeah.
Right? But, like, LSU. Oh, wasn't playing at LSU? Transfer portal. Got cut. I'm out. Another Alabama player. Oh, I'm number 3 on the depth chart at Alabama. Oh, I'm gone. I'm going to Arkansas. Just kidding. I'm not at Arkansas anymore. Sam Leavitt. Sam Leavitt is like being talked about as a number 8 quarterback, number 8 overall player, a top 10 quarterback in the country, top 3 quarterback in the country for that matter.
Yeah, had an outstanding year in his first year with ASU last year.
He did not start with Arizona State.
No. Was he Michigan State?
Yeah, Michigan State transfer. So all of these other schools, it's just a really fascinating thing that, everyone, it's easy to take out when you're talking about the big headlines, which today are Nico Iamaleava and Arch Manning. Oh, those guys are peers. Those guys are in the same realm with one another. And Arch is the last one standing at Texas. Texas is its own entity. It's Texas is Notre Dame.
Well, you could argue Arch is his own his own entity too. He's gonna be. We're gonna look at Arch Manning and see him as the ultimate outlier for this era of college football, as the guy who was willing to stay, who didn't have an itchy
who was okay
trigger
being a backup. Yeah,
didn't have an itchy trigger finger on whether he's going to enter the transfer portal or not. Even though he didn't play very much in his first couple of years, like he's gonna be looked at as the ultimate outlier. I don't think in probably in like 2 to 3 years, even, because that's how fast this is moving. I don't think we'll be able to say, oh yeah, look at him. He was the same as the rest of these quarterbacks. He just made a different decision. No, Arch is different.
So if you have a top quarterback, a top 25 quarterback committing to your school, which of course everyone wants, right? If you're Utah, if you're BYU, if you're Utah State, if you're Texas Tech, you're like, get me the top-rated quarterback out of high school. By this class's numbers, you have a 28% chance that guy's going to be there at your school for, at least 3 years.
And for more than a year or two. Yeah.
And by the way, even other guys in college football that we have seen profess loyalty, and guys that we have seen put that into practice, are not immune from eventually jumping into the transfer portal. Jaden Ott, who is a great player. Jaden Ott had opportunities to leave Cal after his freshman year, after his sophomore year, and it was like, okay, is he going to stay? And you thought maybe he would. And finally, there was a straw that broke the camel's back, whether that was a money thing, whether that was a not enough success at Cal. And I don't think anyone's going to blame him, because he was the best player by far on that Cal roster. And Cal is not going to be anything. Cal's not going to – they're not going to win an ACC championship. They shouldn't be playing in the ACC anyway.
It's still so absurd to hear that to hear you say they're not going to win an ACC championship. It's like, well, yeah, because they play in the They are in the ACC.
The only thing I don't understand about Jaden Ott now, like finally jumping into the transfer portal, is that he has to go to Norman, Oklahoma instead of living in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Because he was making good money at Cal. And if you make good money, you have to make good money if you want to enjoy life in the Bay
Top-tier
Area.
academic school, not to mention, well.
On a lot of metrics, the best public university in the country academically. And then, you got $1 million a year or $750,000 a year that you're hanging out in the Berkeley Hills. Yeah, please. Let's go.
Hanging out with our guy Zachariah,
probably hanging out with Zachariah. But at the end of the day,
shout out to Zachariah if he's listening.
At the end of the day, you're going to Oklahoma. So this is just Arch Manning is being used as the poster boy of loyalty in college football, and that's because of the last name, and it's because he probably deserves it on some level. But you have to look at the whole picture. Texas can do things with their roster that nobody else can do. Texas can tell Arch Manning, hey, we're going to make it worth your time to sit here because even though you're not going to be the starter, you're going to get to play. We're going to put you in games. You're going to get a little bit of experience. You're going to be coached by a great quarterback developer. And by the way, you're also going to be making insane amounts of money, even as a backup. All these other quarterbacks, 7 of the top 25 recruits in Arch Manning's quarterback class at that position are still with the school they committed to. So every recruiting story you read and every announcement and commitment that you see in college football now, you got to take with a grain of salt. Some of these moves were because the player wanted to do it. Some of these moves were because the coaching staff was just like, dude, you're a 4-star guy and you stink. Go play somewhere else. There's no loyalty left. 28%. 1/4 of college football players are still on that loyalty front, probably.
And by the way, we haven't seen it at the 5-star level here at Utah, but we've seen it at Utah in the last few years. 2 of the highest recruited quarterbacks they've ever had, 2 4-stars, left after 1 year. One before that first year was even over, just a few years ago during a Pac-12 championship year. The other couple years before that, but and pre-NIL, but still, and by the way, we've seen it around here.
That's a good example, James. It's not always the fault of the player.
No.
Sometimes it's the coaching staff just being like, dude, you can stay if you want, but
we've got a couple other guys we like.
This is what's happening right now.
Yeah.
I mean, Utah's got 5 quarterbacks on the roster for spring. 3 are getting reps. 3. I put a poll question. Remember when I put a poll question out about, hey, who do you think is going to be the backup quarterback for the University of Utah this year? And I didn't mention the kid from Oklahoma, the Oklahoma transfer kid, the Zurbrugg kid, by name. And people got mad at me.
Yeah, they're like, oh,
you're casual.
Casual. You clearly didn't see that they got an Oklahoma transfer.
You don't know anything about, okay. So you think he's going to be the number 2 quarterback when they haven't given him a rep with the team in spring ball? He gets to do drill work and individual stuff.
Yeah, so far, Isaac's the guy that's gotten the bulk of the reps, and after Isaac, it's been
Bird Ficklin.
Bird Ficklin.
And by the way, there's quarterback reps in special packages going to Nate Johnson.
Yes.
So it's really, really difficult, and I totally understand why any player would want to come to the University of Utah, right? Would want to, this is a great staff. There's a lot of continuity. The recruiting pitch is, I think, contiguous with what the culture actually is and what the university is actually like.
A lot of excitement with the new offense too, and what Jason Beck might be able to do with these young quarterbacks. Yeah.
So it makes total sense that you just be like, it didn't work out very well at Oklahoma for me. Let me see what I can do at Utah, and then to come and be like, oh, okay, so I'm not getting a rep in this team period, coach. It's there's only so many reps to go around. We're installing a new offense. We got a new starter. That's So when I say loyalty is a tough thing to find in college football right now, I'm not just blaming it on players, because The timeline has shrunk. Coaches have to get results now. There's less room for development. There's less time for development. There's less promise that development's actually going to pay off for you as a coach. Even at a place like the University of Utah, that's a Power 4 program. This is exacerbated times 10 at the Utah State level, times 100 at the Weber State level, at the Southern Utah level. The JUCO level, I don't even know. I'm not even going to pretend we can pay attention to that anymore. The top recruited quarterbacks in Arch Manning's class and Nico Iamaleava's class and Sam Levitt's class and Avery Johnson's class, 7 of the top 25 are still with the school they initially committed to. I'm going to start doing this for every year, James, and I'm going to find out what the number really looks like for every year of college football.
College football loyalty race update.
The college
with
football,
the Sean O'Connell show.
What's his CFLQ, college football loyalty quotient?
Summer segment coming up, summer content.
By the way, anytime you add quotient to something, it just makes it sound more sophisticated.
Yes.
I don't know why. Q words, they're rare and they feel special. All right, we got sound from practice yesterday. Kyle Whittingham addressed the media, had some interesting answers. Devin Dampier, Spencer Fano, Hunter Andrews. That's the sound we got. We probably won't get to all of it, but we'll definitely get to Coach Witt and Devin Dampier. Stick around for the sound from practice yesterday. Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. Festival of Tees, powered by the Utah Golf Association, means we are giving away free rounds of golf to the best courses in the state on Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell, on the Sean O'Connell Show right here, and on The Drive with Spence Checketts. Make sure you stay tuned in for your chance to win. I will be giving away 18 holes to somewhere. I think, is it 18 today? I'll be giving away a round of golf.
18 holes. Let me pull it up real quick.
It's in like an hour and 10 minutes. 1:45 will be the target. 1:46 would be exactly an hour and 10 minutes.
Hour and 9 minutes. Let's see. It is 18 holes to El Monte.
Okay.
Stay tuned for that. Also, Judas Priest tickets.
Yeah.
Part of Topical Trivia today as well.
You know what we might start having to do when we have a dual prize? Split it up a little bit. Mix it up.
We could do that.
Do trivia like in this hour, do trivia in the next hour. Split up the prize.
Yeah, we could do that.
All right. We might do that. Maybe. Yeah. You know what? We will do that. I will give away.
So next segment, we'll give away the Judas Priest tickets.
I'll give away Judas Priest tickets in 11 minutes.
Okay.
On the Sean
Let's
O'Connell
do it.
Show. All right. I do want to get to this practice sound, though. I always preface it. All right. I don't preface it. But in my mind, I preface it. I'm going to make it public. It's not our fault that the jugs machine is going and the background noise happens and the audio on these things gets a little rough.
And the background noise, meaning players yelling at each other because they're having a good time after practice. Yes. We apologize.
And they're right at the top of the stairs getting their nutrition, their refuels, getting their little parfaits and getting their little shakes.
As they head into the weight room or wherever they're going next. Yeah.
By the way, I have this problem, James, with free food. And every time I walk past that table and I can't grab something, I'm like, gosh dang it.
Some of that looks good. Sometimes they have like a nice little parfait for them.
Yeah, they have parfaits.
I'm like, I would
They have
down that
fresh
so quick.
fruit, like little containers of fresh fruit. Anyone who's been grocery shopping lately knows how much that fresh fruit costs, man. It's like a $7 thing of fruit that they're just handing out to any player who wants it. Anyway, Kyle Whittingham, post-practice, as spring ball comes to a close this week. They got one more full padded practice and then the scrimmage. Go ahead.
Another scrimmage on Saturday. How'd that one go?
Went good. It went good. It was another, I guess you'd call it a hybrid scrimmage where some of the drills were live and some were thud, but got a lot of work done. Continue to take steps forward and continue to have a long way to go. I mean, there's you're never satisfied. You're always trying to get better, but I think through 12 practices, I can say we have not had a bad practice. Some are better than others, obviously, but we've made at least some progress every single day out here. We've got 3 to go and got to make them count.
Especially out of the quarterbacks, where have you seen progress in kind of their development, especially with Devin?
We have, yep, Devin and the other 2 that are getting, the 3 guys are getting all the reps, Devin, Isaac, and Bird, and we've seen progress out of all 3 of them. And that needs to happen. And you would expect that with all the reps we're getting. You'd expect some improvement to take place in the house.
What position groups do you feel have improved the most over the course of 12 practices?
The most. Well, the wide receivers are starting to take big steps, as we talked about. Zach Williams in particular. Let me think here. Safeties are playing really good football. Rabbit Evans is making plays all over the place. And Nate Ritchie's doing a great job. Teo Johnson's doing a great job. So I would say those guys are really a catalyst for the defense.
Spring portal opens up here soon. How active do you think your program will be there?
Time will tell. You never know. There's indications are that it shouldn't be too crazy, but until it actually happens, you never know. So we'll find out. It's tomorrow's the day, right? And we got 8 hours and opens up, or 6 hours, whatever the case may be. So we'll see. But everyone right now is out here working hard, and haven't had anybody opt out for the portal. This year we had one quarterback early on, but other than that, it's been pretty quiet.
As it stands right now, what position groups do you feel like you're going to address in the
portal? Okay, we'll probably need another receiver. O-line, we're solid. Maybe another running back. QB, unless we have movement, we should be okay. We'll take a look at QBs. You always do in the portal every time it opens. Tight ends, we should be okay. D tackles, possibly a little thin there. And a corner. So that's probably the shopping list. But again, it just depends on availability and who we may lose that we don't anticipate losing, so that could alter that. But as we stand right now, that's the plan.
Kyle, in the fall, when you talked about needing more of a plug-and-play offense to kind of help with the transfer portal, how have you seen that change maybe with Jason, and has it worked maybe a little bit better for you to get these guys in?
It's working well, and it's an offense that is user-friendly, and there's a lot of pre-snap explanation to the players. I guess that's the best way to put it. There's not a lot of rote memory, and so that helps out when you're new to the program, new to the offense. It reduces that learning curve.
Kyle, I want to ask about Hunter Andrews switching from running back to tight end. How has he been handling
He's made a great transition, and we plan to have that stick. It was at first it was, let's see how you fit in this new scheme and how they can utilize you. And he's been a big part of what we're doing offensively. He's a guy that is essentially playing as much as anybody else. He's getting tons of reps and has really responded. And that is going to be the place that he continues to play.
Coach, in regards to losing people you might not expect to lose, do you change your exit meetings or conversations? Do you address players differently than you used to?
No, we don't change that. We still got to get through spring ball and finish up. We'll have our exit meetings next week. And typically, if a guy is going to go to the portal, they are not going to go through the entire spring ball. That typically, they usually opt out prior to, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. But that's usually the indicator is when they say, "Hey, I'm not going to practice anymore." But we can't have too much disruption and change the whole routine just because of that. We just got to keep plugging away and keep going through the process that we have.
The preliminary approval for the House settlement was pushed back, and obviously that means rev share is kind of up in the air.
Yeah.
Teams are kind of mad dashing to put money into people's pockets. Does that change your perspective, given there was no preliminary approval on that?
Probably not. We don't have a vault of cash somewhere to put in people's pockets. If you do, if you know about one, let me know. But no, that doesn't change how we operate right now.
Whittingham, post-practice, the style of communication in college football is yet another thing that you can count as having changed pretty drastically, because 2 years ago, a coach would, if you said, "Hey, what are you going to look for in the transfer portal?" A coach probably would have been like, "We're happy with everything we got. We'll take it, look, and evaluate." Kyle Whittingham now is just like, let's see, wide receiver, O-line, we're good. Tight end, we're good. Quarterback will be okay, but we might take a look there. Running back, he's D-line. He's just telling you what he needs.
He said D-tackle, we're a little thin. He even offered that we're not as deep as we'd like to be. We don't feel like we're as deep as we'd like to be at this point at D-tackle. That was unheard of from Witt a couple years ago, to your point.
I'll say this. The D-tackle situation at Utah, I still have trust in it. I still think that when you get a healthy Aliki Vimahi, a healthy Jonah Le'ea, a healthy Dallas Fakalahi, I think you're probably going to be fine. But you want 3 more names at least on that list.
Yeah, because as we don't need to tell Utah fans, injuries happen, right? Injuries happen, and guys you think are going to be good don't necessarily pan out once the games start.
And even when injuries don't happen, the best versions of Utah football have effectively 2 starting pairs of defensive tackles. 2 rotations where those guys, there's not a drop-off between the 1s and the 2s, right? The Pac-12 conference championship years, the years where you were competing for conference championships but didn't quite win them, you had 4 deep at least, right? And that's an important thing to have. Obviously, you need 5 or 6 or 7 to insulate from the possibility of injury, and with the injury history of somebody like Aliki Vimahi, you are especially concerned about that. The depth right now at defensive tackle is such a significant concern that even during the media observation period of practice, it affected the rotation. It affected how they were running the defense. The personnel groupings on the defense were changed because of a lack of depth at defensive tackle right now. That's where Utah is at. I trust, again, that they'll get it figured out, but it's just not something that we're used to. And so, absolutely, they are going to look out there. And that's one of those things. I honestly think it's tough for Utah to bring top-level wide receivers to Utah because there's just too many guys who are going to look at what has happened recently and just be like, okay, well, I mean, the last 2 years you have not really been able to pass the ball.
And even when you have, a lot of it's been tight ends getting targeted.
And even though I'm excited about this Devin Dampier cat because he's going to be calling everybody, we'll play his sound next for you. As a wide receiver, you're probably looking at it and going, I don't know, man. Like, is Utah really the place where I want to go to continue my career? So that's a tougher sell. Defensive line, come on. You should be able to make that phone call and be like, hey, do you want to come be part of the long history of incredible defensive tackles that have played at the University of Utah?
Coached by a longtime NFL player, Luther Ellis.
Are you interested in this? And they'll just be like, they should be like, yeah. Can I have some money? Sure, we'll give you like $10. I don't know what the price is. I don't know what they've got available, but in any case, that was the biggest thing that stuck out for me. That well, two things. I asked the question about, knowing the transfer portal window is opening, do you go because of what you see with Nico Iamaleava and what you're seeing with guys around with Jade Knott? Do you go and say, hey, I just want to make sure you're cool, man? Like, you don't have any plans in the next 10 days here to enter the transfer portal, right? And Coach Wood's like, no, man, I'm not going to change the process. That's not a direct quote, but that's effectively what he said.
Yeah, that's the message.
And then, the idea that the message goes out to the media, it goes out to players in the portal, but it also goes out to the players that are on your team right now. When your head coach goes, we need another corner. If you're a corner on this team right now, you're like, I better step it up, dude. And it also means, like, if he's saying we need another corner, that's a job that's open. That means that I have an opportunity to be the starter this year. We need another defensive tackle. Wow, I can actually get playing time if I buckle down and get myself in good shape and I get healthy and I work hard this summer. It's such clarity. It's so backwards to what we've heard
it really is.
For the last couple of years. But for if you're a player, I mean, they do a good job, and they have, as far as I know, for years at the University of Utah. When you leave spring ball, when you're heading out to your summer vacation, they bring you in, and even if you're just like the crappy walkout on the team, they're just like, this is going to be your role on the team. And they're pretty honest about it. They're not gassing you up and telling you something, but that means if you're a D tackle, your exit meeting with Kyle Whittingham is going to be, hey, we really need you to step up. And when they say that, it's not lip service. They're saying, we need a body or two that we can actually put in games. You have an opportunity to play. If you're a corner, you have an opportunity to play. If you're a wide receiver, you could be a part of this offense. You need to elevate yourself to the point where we will throw the ball to you. There's been plenty of years for Utah football where you exit spring, and if you're somebody who's like on the depth chart, you're not moving up. You're not climbing that ladder. The last couple of years at tight end, you're not getting more reps and more touches than a healthy Brant Keithy. Your only hope, and it's an ugly hope, but your only hope was that there is some kind of an issue. That was true when Dalton Kincaid was there. That was true when Brant Keithy was there. That was true when Cole Fotheringham was there. You're looking at it, you're just going like, geez, man, I'm not going to get any touches. This year, it's open. So appreciate the candor from Kyle Whittingham, and hopefully the players process that and understand it. All right, we have more sound. Of course, you knew I wasn't going to get to all of it. I'm too long-winded. Devin Dampier, the starting quarterback, presumed starting quarterback for the University of Utah, answered a couple of questions.
Judas Priest tickets, too.
And we're giving away Judas Priest tickets.
Get your texting fingers ready.
I hope you were listening earlier because I gave you the answer to this question, 877-353-0700. We will give away some Judas Priest tickets next with a question I will ask right at the start of the segment. So be with us in 3 minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. 877-353-0700. Judas Priest tickets. I got a pair of them to give away if you can answer this question. Clayton Keller secured his first 90-point season. Finished with 1 goal in the final game of the year against the St. Louis Blues. 30 goals, 60 assists. Keller goes 90 points. That is a mark of really, really, really good hockey.
Career high 60 assists. The goals, he's gotten more goals in this season, but the 60 assists is a career high, so awesome for him.
So 1 90-point season so far for Clayton Keller. Wayne Gretzky had a bunch of them. Alex Ovechkin, all right, is right now kind of the high water mark for active players in the NHL, statistical production, etc. How many 90-point seasons has Alex Ovechkin had? I gave this to you when we were speaking with Bell Fraser earlier on the show today. So if you were listening then, hopefully you know how many Alex Ovechkin had. Clayton Keller has 1. How many does Ovechkin have? Sean O'Connell Show continuing here on ESPN 791 FM. Devin Dampier, presumed starting quarterback, spoke with the media after yesterday's practice. Here is number 4.
Devin, how do you feel after a month of spring ball?
I feel great. Obviously, again, I say it all the time. Coming here, I knew the defense was going to be great. So just getting that work against a great defense, especially for me personally, I feel like I'm getting better by the day. And just the new guys adjusting to the new offense already here, they learn fast. So I think we're on the right track. We're moving fast. We're getting done when we got to get done.
Kyle talked about the improvement from the receivers. What have you seen from them, and how encouraged do you feel about that group?
Yeah, I think receivers are a very big quarterback-receiver chemistry thing. So just them learning how we want to run our offense and what we want to do. And, when they're able to pick that up, they're basically on the same chemistry as me. So when we both know what we're doing on the field, completions tend to come real easy. So I think we're getting a better job of just feeling each other and, knowing what's going on the field together.
Devin, where have you improved since last year with New Mexico?
Yeah, I feel like turnovers is something, just protecting the ball. That's something big I've been working on this spring. But just also, you're never at full potential. There's always room to get better. So just always going over film, seeing what I can do better, just taking everything away every practice.
How different is the offense here that you ran in New Mexico? I know it's the same OC, obviously, but is there any wrinkles that maybe you've had to learn or different things that way?
Yeah, obviously there's a couple things we add on. Certain players can do certain things a little better than other people. So, we stick to their talents, and there's certain things that they did do good last year in this offense. So we were able to translate a couple of those plays into our new offense. So yeah, it's great.
Devin, what's your connection like with Hunter Andrews? You switched from running back to tight end, and how's that been going for you guys too?
Yeah, that's huge shout out to him to be able to switch sides and the impact he has on our team already. He can run the ball, catch the ball. He's doing everything. So huge shout out to him. But yeah, our relationship's great. I'm talking to him after every play. He's taking it. I'm taking what he has to for me. So we're on the same page.
How much easier has it made the installation of this offense, knowing that the offensive line is all returners from last year? Yeah,
I think that's been the easiest part of this part. Just coming here, they kind of handle a lot of the stuff up front. I make very little calls for them. They're all on the same page as well. So when you got all 5 guys working on the same page, my job's real easy back there.
As you move into the off season, what's the big goal for you in terms of what you're working on and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is continue to still talk to my guys, even though they're out with their families. You want them to enjoy that time, but just being able to keep that chemistry, because just being away from football, your mind could drift off a little bit. So just make sure I'm keeping in contact with those guys. Sending them clips every once in a while. Let's keep this thing. You've been doing it well all spring. Let's keep this going. Let's get on it summer, and then obviously a couple of weeks before even summer ball, we're going to get out here and we're going to work even earlier. So
when the portal opens for the spring, are you going to be calling guys that you think belong on this team and help them recruit?
Yeah, as a player, that is my job to also help get the guys that we want to get over here. So, I will be participating in that.
Devin Dampier, he looked really good yesterday. He is the kind of guy that if you're an opposing defender, you've got a really tough choice every time he's got any space in front of him, right? Because when he drops back to pass, of course you want to stay with your man. You got to run with your man. But you got to keep your eyes on the backfield as well, because if there's any kind of seam, there's any kind of issue, there's any kind of Devin Dampier will take off and he'll find the sticks, and he's going to be really smart this year about getting down and not taking contact and all that kind of thing. But if you bail out of the center of the field, right? Like Utah puts a route structure in place where your linebackers and your safeties have to run toward the sideline to cover bodies. Devin Dampier is just going to be like, oh, thank you. And we saw it a couple times yesterday. He beat the defense with his arm a couple of times, hooked up with Tia for a score to cap off a drive. And then, when guys don't have disciplined eyes, making sure that the backfield is that Devin's still in the backfield, he recognizes that. As soon as he gets all backs turned, he's seeing the names on the back of your jersey, he's running. So a very, very frustrating guy to have to defend. Thankfully, Utah does not have to do it, except in practices, because that's a tough thing to do. It's kind of like Levitt at Arizona State was in that game last year. You've got great coverage, right? All bodies accounted for, except your pass rush doesn't get home, and that quarterback now is 15 yards in front of him, and there he goes. So hopefully Utah can take advantage of that as the season progresses with Devin Dampier back here. You can listen to all the sound we have from spring ball on ESPN700sports.com and the ESPN 700 app. Coverage is brought to you by Jersey Mike's and Advanced Window Products. Speaking of Advanced Window Products, right now the weather in Utah is pretty close to perfect, right? You don't need to have your furnace on. You don't need to have your air conditioner on. That Goldilocks zone only lasts for about a month in Salt Lake City, which means you're about to start racking up the energy bills again as that AC kicks on. One of the best ways to make yourself more energy efficient is replacing those old windows. Advanced Window Products, give them a call today, 801-850-9100. They'll give you $2,500 off 10 windows or more. More important than the savings, though, it's a company you can trust, run by people that you know, people that you can trust. Nate Orchard, Jake Weber, these guys have been around and been in business for a long time. And obviously, they're going to make good on the lifetime warranty. Life of the windows covered the whole time. You get a little crack in the window, it wasn't your fault, neighbor kid threw a rock through your window, doesn't matter, covered under the warranty. For whatever reason, there's something that goes wrong with installation, they'll get out there, they'll fix it right away. And by the way, the sales, the installation, the warranty service, it's all done here locally in the state of Utah. I will drive you down to Advanced Window Products. You can see the sales floor. You can see where it's manufactured. You can meet the people who made your windows and are going to install your windows. They do everything here in our home city. Advanced Window Products, advancedwindows.com. Tell them OC sent you. Trevor Sikkema is going to join us next. We'll talk NFL draft. It's coming. It's 8 days away. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome to hour number 3 of the Sean O'Connell Show on a Wednesday. NFL Draft rapidly approaching. My favorite non-competitive sporting event of the year, the NFL Draft. Trevor Sikkema is the lead draft analyst for Pro Football Focus, kind enough to join us now on the Sean O'Connell Show. Trevor, welcome. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. I know you said that NFL draft's non-competitive. I'm in a mock draft competition, so it's plenty competitive to me when night one rolls around. So I just wanted to make that very clear.
Yeah, I should have been more clear, but it's the only one. It's my favorite non-sporting event or non-competitive sporting event in that you don't actually have to go out there and hit anybody and score points, but competitive nonetheless because these teams are all trying to get an edge on one another here. Do you feel like we're going to get surprised at all at the top of this draft? I mean, we're watching all these mocks kind of round themselves out. Is there going to be a blockbuster trade last minute that completely upsets this apple cart?
I don't know if there's going to be a blockbuster trade, but I will tell you that, yeah, I think that this could be a very chaotic first round. I think a lot of the mock drafts that we read right before the draft gets underway, I think a lot of them look very similar, no matter what year it is, because it's a lot of, inevitable groupthink that we're all sort of, listening to other draft analysts. We're all trying to get as much intel as we possibly can. And a lot of times the things that get out there, we all know because it's the age of information. And so I think a lot of those final mock drafts are going to look very similar. And I think there are going to be 3, 4, 5, 6 picks that happen in the first round that nobody is expecting, that was in no mock drafts. That was crazy. So I don't know if there are prospects in this class that are going to garner the trade prices to be able to move up or move back, I should say. I don't know if there's going to be 2 to tango on a lot of those deals. But I will say with a lot of teams that might not be moving up and down, which I think is most of them, they'll probably stick true to their board, and I think the boards are going to look very different this year from team to team.
Who's the most impactful player in the draft? I know that, the most impactful position is quarterback, and there are franchises that are quarterback needy and things like that. But who's the guy who, wherever he goes, he's going to be the biggest game changer for that team?
I think it is the guy who's number 1 overall on my board. It's Travis Hunter. And I think it has to be the answer there because he's playing 2 different positions. I really do think that he's going to play 2 positions in the NFL. I believe he's going to go number 2 overall to the Cleveland Browns. They've got a wide receiver 1 need, and they could even have, a corner 2 need, honestly, on that team. And so I don't know if they'll let him play both of those positions full time, but I think that they'll give him a shot to be able to play those 2 positions every single week, whatever the workload looks like for him. Maybe it's a little bit different his rookie year. Maybe they have a plan for him moving forward. But anytime you have a player who can play those 2 positions on different sides of the ball to the impactful level the way that Travis Hunter did, it's why he is my number 1 overall prospect. And I don't think he gets enough credit for how smart he is and how naturally he is as a football player. I think everybody looks at the athletic gifts, how he is built, the ball skills, the athleticism overall, and they just say, well, okay, well, yeah, he's just very physically gifted. He is, but you don't play that position at such a high level unless you are just a true natural for the game, that every single time you lace them up, you literally are one of the best football players that's on that field no matter what field you're on. And I think that gets to ring true once he becomes a professional in the NFL. So I think that for everything that Travis Hunter can bring to a team, I feel as though he has to be the answer to that question.
Trevor, you're in good company here because I'm obsessed with this kid. It's unbelievable what he was able to do playing on an All-American level on both sides of the ball. In the era of rest and recovery and load management and all that kind of stuff in pro sports, he's a guy who, with the agreement of his head coach, who was obviously a unique unicorn talent in his own right, he was just like, no, I'm going to do it all. And Deion signed off on it, and he was able to do it. I remember sitting on, in front of a microphone 2 years ago being like, no way this guy can play 100-plus snaps a game every single week and expect to complete a whole season. And, of course, he did, and he was very worthy of a Heisman Trophy for doing so. So with all that in mind and everything that you said, what is he actually better at the next level? Can he be a wide receiver 1? Is he a lockdown corner? He's elite at both positions in college football. Does splitting that time make him less than elite at the NFL level at one of them or both?
No, not to the level that I think people were concerned a couple of months ago. I think there were a lot of people that were like, all right, well, yeah, he plays both sides, but they've sort of taken away from one another when it comes to his pro projection. I don't know if I really believe that. I have said this the whole process, and I still believe this. It feels like it's not as popular anymore. I would draft him full-time as a corner. I think who he is as a cornerback is more rare. It's more unique, whether it's the arm length, just the overall athleticism, the footwork, especially the ball skills. He has the best ball skills of any defensive back I've ever scouted and probably ever will scout, if I'm going to be honest with you. He has the best ball skills because you think of the insane catches that he has made as a wide receiver. He is still that same person when he lines up at corner. And he has that ability to go up and take the ball away. And we saw that many times throughout his college career while at Colorado and Jackson State as well. So, when I think about where he could be in the NFL, I think he is most impactful as a corner, but he is also such a great receiver. He is. I don't mean to take that away from him at all whatsoever. I do think that he could be a wide receiver one on an NFL team, which I think just goes to show you how highly I think of him as a corner. But in terms of, which position I believe in him the most and where I would play him the most, it is cornerback. I'd give him a shot to play both spots, but I think it's much easier to play him full-time as a corner and then moonlight him a little bit, as a wide receiver. You get him anywhere from 10 to 15 snaps as a wide receiver every single week. It's much more difficult to do that the other way around, to say, okay, well, you're a full-time wide receiver, then also, you'll play a couple of snaps at corner here and there throughout the week. Corner and the defensive side of the football specifically is just so much based on repetition and chemistry with the rest of your defensive players that are there around you that just you can sort of disrupt that chemistry, or at least there's the potential to, more so than saying, hey, just go out and then run this route, and the chemistry really only matters between you and your quarterback. So all that to say, I'd play him first and foremost primarily as a corner because of how unique I think he is for the position, but that doesn't make him any less of a receiver.
I know you can't measure this, but having interviewed him a couple times and having watched him play for these last several years, I think Travis Hunter loves football more than most even professional football players do. How meaningful is that to NFL teams?
Again, it sort of goes back to what I said a couple of minutes ago, where I don't think this guy gets credit for how smart of a football player he is. And I think that you can take sort of like care level and how much he loves the game of football into it. Again, he's such a natural. He really is. You could tell, not to diminish the other parts of who he is as a human being, but he was born to play this game. He was. And I think that you see that every single time he goes out there as a corner or a wide receiver. I think he's very smart in everything that he has had to retain from the tutelage of Deion Sanders and the rest of his coaches there, and how much he has improved within his high talent level over the last couple of years. And you don't play both positions at the level in which he did, not only from a talent level, but also just the reps level. He played by far the most snaps of any player in college football this past season. The next closest was an offensive tackle, and it was still like 250 less snaps, I think, from him. And you don't play that many snaps unless you love the game, unless you truly love to play this game. And so I think that his passion for it, his dedication to it, how much of a natural he is, how talented he is, all of that goes into why I have him as a top player.
I love it, but we'll move off Travis Hunter for a moment here. The Big 12 Conference, where Utah and BYU ply their trade, and, of course, we're here in the state of Utah in Salt Lake City. The draft projections, a lot of the mock drafts have it being 2 Colorado guys and Tetairoa McMillan, and that's not a deep representation. Now, I know you don't panic about one-year sample size with this, but we know that the college football world has been separating for years into the haves and the have-nots, and that projects itself out with NFL talent. How crucial is it that the Big 12 finds a way to keep up from an NFL talent standpoint after this draft, moving forward, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I think that it's important. To be honest with you, I think that the advancements in NIL maybe make it a little bit easier, right? Because before, without NIL and sort of the whole strategy that goes into that with getting top-tier recruits and developing players and representing the Big 12 in the NFL, a lot of just what you had to say was, it was like Nick Saban basically saying, okay, take a look at the championship rings and take a look at how many players that I send to the NFL every single year. And that was basically the argument of how you would get these top recruits to your programs, and that's what made the SEC the best program or the best conference, in my opinion, in the country, and how deep it is for all of their teams and how many potential NFL players they have in there. And Now I think things are a little bit different. Like, yeah, obviously sending guys to the pros matters a lot, and championships matter a lot, but so is helping these kids navigate NIL the way that you want to, and making sure that they're professionals and becoming professionals in that aspect of the world as well. So, to your question, obviously it's important to be represented in things like first round conversations, but in my opinion, it matters a little bit less than it did in the past, because that used to be all you had to really pimp your program and represent it to recruits. And now you have a little bit more where you can sort of entice these players to come to your programs that you hope are able to build out more numerous potential first-round picks.
Talking NFL draft with Trevor Sikkema here from Pro Football Focus. The quarterback question in this draft, it seems to be Cam Ward 1, Shedeur Sanders 2, and then who as the third best quarterback? And is that third best quarterback worth the first round pick? How many QBs do we see taken in the first round?
Still think it's only 2. I do. I think that Cam Ward's going to go number 1 overall. I think that's a foregone conclusion at this point. I have no idea where Shedeur Sanders goes. I know I'm a draft guy. I get paid to actually give a more concrete answer than that. But I mean, he could go 3 to the Giants. He could go 9 to the Saints. He could go 21 to the Steelers, or somebody could trade up in the back end of the first round to draft him. I don't know where he's going to go on day 1, but I do think that it is still going to be day 1. For as much as Jackson Dart and Jalen Milroe, I believe both of them are going to be in attendance in Green Bay for the first round of the draft. I don't think they get drafted, despite the quarterback desperation from a lot of these teams. Unless we see a second-round team trade back up into the first round, I'm going to say that we only have 2 go. I think that I look at this quarterback class similarly to the way that I looked at the 2022 NFL draft with, Kenny Pickett and Desmond Ridder and Malik Willis and Sam Howell and Matt Corral. And I think that this quarterback class is a little bit better than those guys were, and perhaps that just bumps all those players up. But in that draft, we got Kenny Pickett at 19 overall to the Steelers in the first round, and then we didn't get another quarterback until 81. It was Desmond Ridder was the next selection there. So I don't think there's going to be that big of a gap, but I just am not convinced that these NFL teams are going to stretch all the way for quarterbacks. I know we tell ourselves that it's going to happen every single year, and maybe it does, but I'm just not convinced that these teams are going to look at these quarterbacks as worthwhile first-round investments, given how much work I think a lot of them needs, and especially because in today's game, if you're a quarterback drafted in the first round, recent history tells us you better be ready to start. You're going to start at some point in your rookie year. And, does Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart or Tyler Shuck, are these guys that you want starting next year? I wouldn't say so. So I would be much more hesitant, and I wonder if, despite all the hoopla from a lot of the media people over the last couple of weeks, if we sort of get back to what we thought of these guys maybe a couple of months ago as these day 2 quarterbacks instead of day 1 quarterbacks.
What are my beloved San Francisco 49ers going to do? This is a very important draft for them.
It is a very important draft, and that's because they are worse off in the trenches than I think people are willing to admit. I think we got a sneak peek of that certainly in the early parts of the season. I remember, I think it was that Washington game, wasn't it, where they were playing, it was week 4 or week 5, and I just watched whoever they were playing, I think it was the Commanders. I just watched them just run the ball straight. Maybe it was the Cardinals, actually. Maybe it was that Cardinals game where they just ran the ball at will against them in the fourth quarter. They did not have the defensive line that we're used to seeing with the San Francisco 49ers outside of Nick Bosa. A lot of those familiar faces in Javon Hargrave and DeForest Buckner and guys like that, we're no longer there. And I think that it was the first time that we looked at San Francisco and went, wow, okay, not as good in the defensive trenches as we thought that they were going to be. And then on the offensive side of things, I think that that's a story there as well. They get Colt McKivitz, which they might be able to upgrade from at that right tackle spot. Trent Williams still playing at a high level, but can't play forever. You have 2 interior offensive line spots that you might be able to upgrade from. I know they nailed it with Dominic Pooney, but man, for a team that I think everybody just feels as though they have one of the best rosters in the NFL because they have over the last 3 to 4 years, they're turning the page a little bit on a lot of those guys, and a lot of those players that were stalwarts of this team aren't there anymore. So I think that it's got to be something in the trenches, in my opinion, for them at number 11. Whether it's a guy like Will Campbell or Mason Graham if they fall to them, or maybe a Kenneth Grant or a Walter Nolan or Armand Membu or a Kelvin Banks, something. Offensive or defensive trenches, I think they have to focus on that if you're the Niners.
You just mentioned the Commanders, so Jaden Daniels was a revelation, incredible. And we knew he was a great player, but even Heisman Trophy level QBs don't often step into the NFL and have that level of impact on a franchise and look that polished. Did you see it coming at all?
I didn't. I had him 21st overall on my big board. He was QB3 for me, but he was well behind Caleb Williams and Drake May, who I had in my top 5. I still thought he should have been a first-round quarterback, but man, picking him over Drake May at number 2 overall, I was like, oh man, obviously I wouldn't have done that compared to my rankings, but they saw something in him that was obviously extremely special, and we got to see that very early on. And so my hope is that Jaden Daniels just continues to play very well. We had a great rookie season from C.J. Stroud, and he, I don't want to say took a step back, but the situation changed, and he just was not as good as he was his rookie season in his sophomore season. Now, I think that he could absolutely be that and more in his third year because I think he's a talented football player that loves the game and wants to be great. I think the same with Jaden Daniels, though. And so he absolutely outplayed my draft position of where I had him, and my hope is that he just continues to improve despite some offensive line changes that they're going to have going into this upcoming season. But they changed things, I think, in a good way. Obviously, Sam Cosmi getting hurt doesn't really help them, but trading for Laramie Tunsil, trading for Deebo Samuel, you're making that offense as potent as it can be. And so I'm excited to watch him here in year 2.
Caleb Williams has a special place in the heart of Utah fans because he didn't seem to like us and we didn't seem to like him, but I like watching him play. I think he's an excellent player. I don't think he's judged all that fairly in a lot of cases. How did you evaluate his rookie season?
He was in a tough situation, and I think that that's very obvious. I think that Shane Waldron, their offensive coordinator, didn't really know what to do with their offensive line the way that it was constructed, with the run game, with all those offensive weapons, and to be honest, how to put Caleb Williams in the right situation. And that's why Shane Waldron's no longer there. That's why they moved on from him in the middle of the season. It's why Matt Eberflus is no longer there because very clearly they just did not have a good plan for Caleb Williams' development. And I think that we saw a lot of issues that we saw at USC. I felt like the main issue was sort of lack of confidence, right? I think that when you look at Jaden Daniels versus Caleb Williams, well, the difference isn't like talent level. It's not like Jaden Daniels is so head and shoulders more talented than Caleb Williams is, but Jaden played with confidence last year. Caleb didn't. And you could tell that Caleb played with a lot of pressure, with a lot of hesitancy, and Jaden Daniels is playing free. And I think that getting the right coaching staff in there to allow Caleb Williams to play free the way that he did when he was at Oklahoma, the way that he did when he was at USC, that's the most important part of this second year for him. Can he play more confidently? Does he have more confidence within Ben Johnson's offense, behind that offensive line, with the run game next to him, and throw it to some really good receivers? And I think that it's all right there for him. It's just really just about how confident he can become as a player.
Before I let you go, what's going to happen with Ashton Jeanty? He almost won a Heisman Trophy. He was an incredible player at Boise State. The underdog, the little engine that could. Is he as dominant at the pro level as he was in college?
I can't say as dominant just because it was a historic, unbelievable 2,000 rushing yard season. But to say that he is going to be an impactful starting running back in the NFL, I absolutely believe that. I think that number 6 overall for the Raiders, very well within play there for him. Certainly number 10 to the Chicago Bears. Can you imagine Ashton Jeanty next to Caleb Williams? That's a great way to give you some confidence there. Certainly the Dallas Cowboys would love a playmaker like that at number 12. And so I think all those landing spots make a ton of sense for him. I would be surprised if he got out of that top 12 just because of how good he is. He reminds me of what Alvin Kamara has been in this league at his best. A great pass protector, great contact balance, really good receiver, and then a great runner when you got a good offensive line in front of him. And I think that even independent of a great offensive line, Ashton Jeanty showcased in that Penn State game that even when you stack the box against him, even though his blockers weren't able to keep him clean, he was still able to rush for over 100 yards, which is unbelievably impressive. And so I think Ashton Jeanty is one hell of a prospect, and I think he's worthy of a top 12 overall pick.
All right, last thing before I let you go, I promise. Shedeur Sanders being raised by one of the all-time greats in the NFL and coached by him as well, is that, as he makes the transition to the next level, is that an asset or a liability for teams? Because I could see it both ways. there is a little bit of a silver spoon mentality, but there's also, your dad's one of the best ever and knows exactly what it takes to be successful in the NFL.
No, I think it's a positive. I really do. I know some people are like, oh, nobody wants the headache of it. I really don't think that anybody who's considering him is thinking about the headache of it. I really don't think so, especially because, Shedeur really, he already knows what it's like to be a pro. And I think he approaches his game like that, right? He's got some of the cleanest fundamentals in the class. I think he's great at recognizing things pre and post snap. Does he handle every decision perfectly? No, but you can tell he's been around the game at the highest level for a long, long time. And so I don't view it that way. I don't view it as this negative. I know some people do, but to me, I just think that it gives him a head start of what it's like being an NFL quarterback. I really do.
I know it's a busy time of year for you, so I very much appreciate you giving us some time today, Trevor. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Trevor Sikkema, lead NFL draft analyst over at Pro Football Focus. We got some golf to give away still on the show. I want to get back into the Utah Hockey Club situation. We just had our first ever NHL season. How are we feeling about it? What are we thinking about it? 877-353-0700. A little Hockey Club postmortem next on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
so quick twitch. Sandos has been Curry from way outside. Got it! Hits it from Alcatraz.
Long three-pointer, 121-116, play-in victory for the Warriors. Courtesy of TNT Sports, Kevin Harlan on the call. Hits it from Alcatraz is about as good as it gets on play-by-play. Steph Curry ended up with 37 points. Jimmy Butler had 38 points. That's 75 total between your two superstars. Hard to beat a team when both guys are on. It'll be Warriors versus Rockets in the first round of the playoffs. We are your home for the NBA playoffs, which begin this weekend. Listen here on ESPN 792.1 FM. Look, basketball in Salt Lake City this year was tough. All right, the Jazz were awful and were trying to be awful. Hockey was mediocre. It felt a lot better than mediocre because, but look, you're middle of the road. You're not quite a playoff team. And mediocre is often used as an insult. I don't intend it as one. It felt so much bigger and better than what it was from an actual impact on the league standpoint, I guess. I want everyone, forgive me for getting corny and sentimental here. I hope everybody got an opportunity to go to a Utah Hockey Club game or 2 or 10 this year. I hope that everybody at least watched some of these games. I hope that you enjoyed listening to us talk NHL hockey on local radio for quite literally the first time. We never talked NHL hockey in the past. If you started to talk too much NHL hockey, it would be like, no, we don't know what this is. Don't talk about it. The only time anyone wanted to hear anything was when Trevor Lewis, the former LA King, who had the local connection, right? Was like a Sandy kid. And they would come play the showcase games here at the Delta Center.
Frozen Fury.
That was the only time you were allowed to talk hockey, right? So all of us kind of jumped in together at the same point, which, by the way, is such a cool and unique thing that happened in this market this year. And it did so unexpectedly, was the other great thing about it. 15 months ago, we had no idea it was even a possibility.
Yeah, it was. Isn't it? It wasn't April 18th last year. We're coming up on the anniversary on Friday when they had the big pep rally thing at the Delta Center, which also was awesome.
It just
everything about this year hockey wise has been incredible here.
I almost said we'll never pass this way again, where we get a pro franchise nesting down in our market in our lifetime, but I actually think we're going to. Yeah. So I'm not going to say that.
Yeah, baseball seems like it's just around the corner.
But it's so special. It was such a I still get chills when I think of that first game at the Delta Center against the Chicago Blackhawks and the atmosphere of the building, the first home game for the team. It was unreal. The fan reaction, the way that the players responded. And by the way, credit to these players and this coaching staff and the front office. Without any of them basically being from Utah or knowing a lot about Utah before showing up here, they've all done such an incredible job of knowing exactly what Utah is and exactly what Salt Lake City and what Utah needs. Whether they mean it or not, and I think most of them are pretty genuine and do mean it, every one of these players, after a tough loss, after a big win, every single one of them that had a microphone put in front of their face made sure that they mentioned the fans, made sure that they mentioned the support. Bear Tortney, every time he spoke and asked a question and answered about, settling in Utah, or how's it been integrating? Do you like the food? Whatever it is, expressed an appreciation for ownership, the fans. It's like they all went through media coaching that was very specific to Salt Lake City and to Utah. That's the way it resonated with the players and with the fans. They were just like, you know what we need? We need to get these people on our side. There was not a joke cracked about at least not that I ever heard. Oh yeah, we're kind of polite, we're kind of quiet. It's we're excessively Mormon here, whatever. There was none of that. And by the way, you can get away with it because most of us are willing to lean into that a little bit. But it just was a really unique and special time in Utah where you had an opportunity because of basketball being terrible and your sports interest being diverted somewhere else. Utah football wasn't that great this past year, right? Utah basketball wasn't great this year. There were some cool things happening down in Provo, but in Salt Lake City, correct me if I'm wrong, James, but it felt like the Utah Hockey Club in its first year became the thing to watch, at least for a time, in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
More so than the Jazz.
And I don't know what the TV numbers were. I would assume the TV did Utah 16 and SEG Plus or Utah Hockey Club Plus, whatever they've named it. I assume the numbers were pretty good because they were a competitive team all year. But if you just go by fan attendance, yeah, they were the thing to watch. And that being said, the Jazz drew remarkably well for a team that didn't want to win at home games too. You went to one of the games with me, and it was a Celtics game, so there's a lot of visiting fans there at that game. But totally full. Official sellouts all year long. Now I say official because
they fudged the
numbers a little bit to call it a sellout. But
you get $1 tickets to Jazz games this year.
But so they had great attendance despite how bad a year it was. But they didn't. We know now the TV numbers were lower than they've been in over 10 years, maybe 15 years. On the local broadcast on KJazz and Jazz Plus. So the hockey team, the Delta Center, the available seats were, because there's less available seats in the hockey games than Jazz games, way more full than Jazz games were, even though the Jazz were saying they were official sellouts. And I got to think that because they were competitive, the TV numbers and the streaming numbers were probably better too. So I would say, yeah, I think with all of that, with the Salt Lake City teams, other Salt Lake City teams, college and pro, not being very captivating this year, I think it was the perfect storm for Utah Hockey Club to get everyone's attention. And I think that they got just about everyone's attention.
And look, it's not the same as when the Knights showed up in Vegas and immediately went on a Stanley Cup run.
Yeah.
That's freakish, right? And I was hoping for more of a storybook ending to the season where you can go and, spoil things for St. Louis. And
if they had beaten St. Louis last night, St. Louis might not have made the playoffs. Like, they're that close to the final wild card spot. Unfortunately, ends up being a blowout loss, but they were that close to being a spoiler for a team that had just won 12 in a row and spoiled their chances.
And it was, again, the reaction to it post-game was exactly how everything else has been this year. It was completely appropriate. It was dead on target. It was the players and the coach saying, you know what, we wanted to compete. We wanted to play hard. They wanted it more than we did. They're just honest about it, totally candid, and said, this shows us what we need to improve on. This shows us we got a lot of room left to make up. And we started the show early in the show today. We were talking Utah hockey. Bill Fraser came on, and they got some decisions to make on the Cooley contract. They got $23 million in cap space or something, right? They got a bunch of draft picks. You hope that your number one draft pick from last year, Tija Ginla, can start to be a presence on the big club because you need goal scoring, and he's a goal scorer. But he's coming off hip surgery. All these things. And the corny and the feel good and the what did Bell call it? The sparkle and glitter?
Sparkle and glitter.
Of the first season. I'm buying – I drank that Kool-Aid all the way. Went to more games as a fan than I did as a quote-unquote member of the media, right? Just enjoyed it. Just loved having a team here. And that is special and unique and fun, and it is now over. And now you have to start being a playoff team. Now the rebuild has to show progress. The novelty of this thing will not continue into next season. Maybe for some, maybe some didn't get to go to a game this year or whatever. Tickets are expensive and we're expensive. So hopefully everyone gets their shot and everyone gets their turn. But after this year, now it becomes like, okay, we have a team. And by the way, the NHL, everyone in the NHL acknowledges, like, okay, this is now an NHL city. This is a fan base that shows up. This is a fan base that gets loud. This is a group of people that are building infrastructure to grow hockey, not just at the NHL level, but at the grassroots level. And I know that Ryan Smith isn't the favorite person of everybody in this market. I applaud that effort at the very least. Like, you could be critical of billionaires if you want to, but you should also applaud the good things that they do, like community outreach, like investing in something that I think ultimately is really good for us in Salt Lake City. And the Smith Entertainment Group did a great job producing these games this year. I don't know. I'm not articulating properly, I don't think, just how fun it is and was this year to have this thing and for everybody in the state to kind of get to wrap our arms around it at once.
Yeah, and it did seem like we all kind of scoffed and looked at the initial numbers that SEG put out for who was buying season tickets and saying only 6% were Jazz season ticket holders, or I'm probably getting the number wrong, but it was a very small number.
Yeah, there wasn't a ton of crossover between the season
and we went okay, that can't be true. But if you go to the games, not that you can tell, hey, they're a Jazz fan too, whatever, when they're in a hockey game, but it did seem to be a different kind of crowd than the two sports are different, but it did. I'm looking around when I've been to games and going, you know what? These might be a lot different people.
No, they're different.
Jazz
like
games.
It's okay for us to acknowledge, like, if you go to a basketball game or you go to a hockey game, it is a different crowd. If you go to a basketball game or a football game, oftentimes that's a different crowd. Although the football and basketball people are mostly the same, I think. I'll tell you what, you go to an MMA fight, you're going to see the same people you see at the hockey game.
Yeah.
Like when the UFC comes here, when the PFL comes here, those are the people who bought the season tickets for hockey.
Yeah.
And there's a few Jazz folks sprinkled in there too. Don't take our word for it. Look at the beer sales. The first game ever at Delta Center for Utah Hockey Club broke the beer sales record. It's not like Jazz fans were just sitting there waiting until they had hockey to drink beer. It's because hockey fans are the beer drinking types, and Jazz fans are the Diet Coke drinking types. It's okay for us to acknowledge these things.
Yeah, and it's not because it's different owner. He's more open to beer. Same guy. Same Mormon guy who owns the Jazz.
Yeah. And look,
so it was interesting to see how to kind of be proven wrong that this is a different crowd than what's at Jazz games. The guy who wears the broccoli head at games, the veggie super fan,
Broccoli Brandon.
He's originally from Arizona, a Coyotes season ticket holder. I don't know if you knew that story, Bell.
I listened to it on the show yesterday with Spence.
Bell shared that story with on the drive yesterday with Spence, and so it made me think how many of these season ticket holders followed the team to Utah. As bitter as the public perception was that Coyotes fans were at Salt Lake City and Ryan Smith, it seems like there's at least one. There's probably a fair number of these season ticket holders or guys who, or maybe non-season ticket holders, who were able to go to games fairly often, who were Coyotes fans that just followed the team to Salt Lake. So it was cool to see just the contrast in crowds. There's certainly there's going to be a contrast in atmospheres because they're two different sports, but I really do think that those original numbers held true after seeing a season of it, and that's awesome.
Now you know what I'm really curious about? I think we have an idea of who the Jazz fans are, and we have an idea of who the hockey fans are, and who's going to be the baseball fans. What are those people going to be like?
Yeah.
Because baseball has moved out of Salt Lake City officially. The Bees are now in Daybreak. They're in the suburbs, right? And that, Everything's different. It's a beautiful park. Tickets are way more expensive. The parking situation's different. The transportation to get there, whether you're parking or not, is way different than it used to be. And so, it's gonna change that demographic that go to baseball games. I don't know. It's been a fascinating season, and I don't want it to be over, but it is. And I'm excited to see what the future holds, and I want to know what the damn name is.
I gotta think they're probably going to do a big reveal week of the draft.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen.
That's what I think is going to happen.
And I'll say this: it's going to be one of two. Outlaws isn't going to be it, people.
Yeah,
it's going to be Mammoth, or it's going to be Utah Hockey Club. And as a big old middle finger to the cooler brand, the mascot and the logo are going to be a Yeti.
Yeah,
which I kind of am okay with. I don't love the Utah Hockey Club thing; it's too wordy. But I'm just going to call him the Yeti after that because it'll be justified because the mascot will be a Yeti.
Yeah.
The logo will be a Yeti.
I do like that new Utah Hockey Club logo, but I like the name and I like the Mammoth logo enough to go. Yeah, I still would prefer that to be the name. So it'll be fun to see. By the way, hockey's over here in Utah, but it's not over here on Utah's #1 sports talk. We are your home in the NHL playoffs, so we'll still have plenty of reason to have Belle on, as we told her. Tom Callahan, Utah Hockey Club, Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast, not just to talk Utah Hockey Club off season, but also break down some of these NHL games that way more people in this market are going to be watching because we got the NHL team, and hopefully you'll enjoy listening to them here. On your home of the NHL playoffs now.
And the NBA playoffs. Play-in tournament continues. 5:30 ESPN. Bulls host the Heat for play-in. And then in the West, it's Kings Mavs. That one has special interest because you want the Mavs season to be done so Alex Jensen can just take over.
It will be if they lose tonight. This is an elimination game in the play-in tournament.
Hey, Mavs, you suck. Just die. Just be done with the season.
And you can hate listen to that game here on the station. It's around 7:00. We might catch the end of the fourth quarter of the Eastern Conference game coming out of today's best after the drive. But you'll get the entirety of hopefully a Mavs loss to the Kings tonight.
All right, I have some Judas Priest tickets to give away. Utah First Credit.
Oh, we already gave away Judas Priest.
Oh wait, sorry,
I didn't update it. We just got the golf.
We have. I knew that. That's my bad. We have golf to give away. El Monte tickets from the Festival of Tees brought to you by the Utah Golf Association. So 18 holes at El Monte. That's if you know the answer to the question I'm going to give you when we start the next segment in 3 minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Crosstalk coming, brought to you by Burt Brothers. Burt Brothers does it better. First, we got to give away some golf. El Monte, 18 holes, courtesy of Festival of Tees, brought to you by the Utah Golf Association. We spent some time talking about transfer portal situations with Nico and with the Arch Manning situation. I went through, just for my own curiosity, I went through the top 25 quarterbacks of that class that is getting so much attention right now. Arch Manning is the last 5-star who's still at the school that initially signed him. Of the top 25, though, that I went through, how many of the top 25 quarterbacks of that 2023 class are still at the original school that signed them? How many of 25 are at the place where they started their college football careers? 877-353-0700. I say this, we talk transfer portal loyalty, as this fun factoid comes out. Cal, Jade Knott, headlines. The Bears are without their best running back. Actually, Cal will go into next year minus the top 9 rushers of their 2024 season. I'm looking at a graphic right now that shows the statistical breakdown of Cal's run game from 2024. Jade Knott got hurt, remember. Javian Thomas, their leading rusher, portal. Jade Knott, portal. Kadarius Callaway, third leading rusher, portal. Fernando Mendoza, quarterback, who also could run the ball, portal. Chandler Rogers, portal. Byron Cardwell Jr., portal. CJ Harris, Josiah Martin. Mikey Matthews, you've heard of him. All these guys are in the portal for Cal. Their top 9 rushers from last year are gone. Yikes. Here comes Crosstalk, courtesy of Burt Brothers with Spence Checketts, who hosts The Drive next. Hey, Spence.
That is a wild stat you just dropped. The Iamaliava kid, UCLA, is that what we're hearing? LA schools?
We'll see.
Because he's an LA kid, right?
We'll see where he ends up. I mean, the number that he ends up at is going to be the more curious thing. Did he cost himself $1 million by doing this?
Yeah.
Or does he get at least close to what he was making at Tennessee? We know he's not getting $4 million.
Well, you know this. I mean, you've got to be careful when it comes to overplaying your hand, and you also have to be really careful when it comes to listening to outside voices. I mean, he had what was it, 2.5 at Tennessee, a year ago, and they obviously had a great year. I respect the way Josh Heupel has handled this. I don't view this as some horrific doomsday story for college football. Joel Klatt was talking about this yesterday. It's growing pains. And whenever there are millions of dollars involved and you have the ability to leverage your talent, I don't begrudge anybody for trying to leverage their talent to get paid as much as they possibly can. But it sounds like he may have overplayed his hand a little bit.
Well, the point that I was making in the first segment of the show today that frustrates me most about this is I went through the whole range of emotion. Like, what is this kid doing?
Mm-hmm.
$2 million isn't enough. You're spoiled. Oh, good. I'm glad it's not working out for you.
Right.
And I got past that really quick, and I'm just like, oh, man, you know what? This kid's got dozens and dozens and dozens of people around him, and not one of those people were willing to sit down with him or able. Maybe they were willing, but maybe they didn't have enough influence over him to sit down and be like, I'm going to pull up your numbers here, Nico, and you tell me if this justifies doubling your salary in any business, in any job, in anything.
Yeah.
You're the 7th best quarterback in the SEC.
Yeah.
He was, statistically. He was the 7th best QB in the SEC. Do you think you're going to get $4 million from Tennessee? No, probably not. You think you're going to get $4 million from anybody else? I mean, you would hope.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that sticks out most for me. You have those people in your life. I have those people in my life that I'm about to make a mistake, a rash decision. They're at least going to try to talk me off that ledge.
Yeah.
Whether I do it, that's up to me. But it appears that either those people were pushing him in this direction in the worst case scenario, or they just weren't capable of walking him back off that ledge. And, he's going to lose money because of it. He's going to be fine at the end of the day. He'll still probably end up being an NFL player, but that sucks, man. To be the punchline that he is now for however long, Just that by itself sucks.
Yeah, I think it was E.J. Manuel on SportsCenter earlier today who brought up the potential of Nico calling Josh Heupel and apologizing and just saying, my bad, I'll come back. It reminded me, I had a buddy who out of college got a data entry job. It was his job right out of college. And it was a horrible job, but, you do what you got to do. You get a job. And he had worked the same job, that same data entry job, for like 3 years without a raise. And essentially, it's certainly applicable in the modern day and age where AI has taken a lot of jobs and so many things have been automated. But after 3 years, he told us, I'm going in, I'm going to ask for a raise. I'm going to do it. Walked into his boss's office and said, hey, I've been here 3 years. I think it's time that I get a pay raise. And his boss says to him, no, and also you're fired.
Oh.
To which he responded, you know what? We go back to my desk. Let's go back to the arrangement we had 30 seconds ago. Forget I ever brought it up. And he apologized, and she let him keep his dumb data entry job for like $12.50. But you've got to be careful. If you don't have leverage, you've got to be really careful about what you're asking for. And to your point, good quarterback, young quarterback. And I don't know if he heard what Arch was getting. I don't know. Like, the reports are his father heard the $4 million NIL number for other quarterbacks that he thinks Nico is applicable for and said, okay, you should be getting this. But even, that's a really slippery slope because you brought up the dynamic. You have to have people in your circle that will grab you by your shirt collar and say, stop it. That's enough. No. Your most valuable friends and family members are the ones that will tell you no when you need to hear it.
Yeah.
And it certainly sounds like his inner circle was just trying to, be a part of this cash grab. And there are reports that UCLA is interested, but a public school that typically doesn't pay their coaches and players, like USC has always had that benefit because they're a private school. Does he call Josh Heupel and apologize and says, I want to come back to Tennessee? It'll be interesting.
We'll see, because Tennessee's not in a great quarterback situation if he is out of there.
Exactly.
So, yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Do you know the number?
I don't.
So Arch Manning, everyone made a big deal about him. Arch is the last 5-star that's still at his school.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, but there's only a handful of 5-stars.
Uh-huh.
So he's one of 5.
Okay.
Which is still,
The other 4 are all gone.
The other 4 transferred somewhere else. And I was like, what about the elite quarterbacks in the country as the elite high school quarterbacks? What about the top 25? How many of those guys are still where they committed to initially? And actually, the number's larger than I thought it was going to be because when you start going down the list, you're like, oh, he transferred. But then there's like in the middle, like the 11th ranked through like 17th ranked. A bunch of those guys stayed. But there's 7 out of the top 25. That's the answer to our trivia question.
That's still pretty wild that's the number.
7 of the top 25 quarterbacks from that 2023 class are still with their school. And by the way, only 2 of them have actually played, and only 1 has been the full-time starter, and that's Kansas State quarterback Avery Johnson.
That's wild. I mean, I didn't. When you asked the question, I was trying to brainstorm like what would my guess be, but I don't know that I would have guessed that low. It's a new sport. It's a new business. It's a new landscape, and it continues to be wild that the sport in and of itself in a vacuum, the sport and the product of college football is strong enough to overcome all this because it's not going to affect anything come fall. It just won't. Like, college football is far from broken. I know we have a lot of like alarmists and naysayers. It's just, and I think Klatt's been the best with this. Josh Pate's been really good with it too. We all just have to get used to a new business model that eventually will settle in and probably make the sport we all love even better at some point. It's taken a tremendous amount of growing pains for people to get to the acceptance phase. And now we're on the precipice of the House versus NCAA settlement. We'll learn a lot more about what the decision makers actually have to work with, and high-speed head to the fall, where Saturdays in the fall are still going to feel like Saturdays in the fall.
Stay tuned for The Drive with Spence Checketts. Thanks for listening today. Next 2 days, I'm out for PFL duties. That means Scott Mitchell is holding down the Sean O'Connell Show. You're listening to Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network.